Order, please.
It's not parliamentary and it incites aggression. As a speaker or as a presiding officer, you must always rein on us with balance, with maturity, be patient with us. Otherwise, the way in which you switch off the mic, it incites aggression. It's unnecessary. I'm appealing to your conscience. Let's not do this game of switching people's mics. We're not in kindergarten. The mic must be on until I finish speaking. And I must be able to take an instruction and so on and so forth. But let's not switch over people's mics. We're going to have a serious problem. It incites aggression. It's actually very violent. It's very violent.
Honorable Ngozi, I want to repeat that you accepted the rules that you will speak for a specified time frame, that it is the business and the responsibility of the presiding officer to alert you when you are going over time. When even after being warned that you have overstripped your time, you are inciting ungovernability in the House, and that is unacceptable, and we will keep switching off the mic. You must understand that, sir. I'm sure you are able to understand that. So don't try and make this appeal again. And if you do that, it is unacceptable to deliberately violate the rules and then threaten aggression. That is ungovernable. That is out of order. FF plus. What are you raising on what are you raising on, honorable member?
No, Bratsenudi, all I'm saying, which is something that I'm not threatening you with aggression. I'm saying that it's aggressive for you not to recognize the passion of speech.
It's not, honorable member.
The passion of speech.
Listen, honorable member.
Switching off a mic is not the best way to address that.
Honorable member, I don't take your advice on what is the best way to stop you going across what you yourself accepted as a rule. So it's out of order. Please take your seat.
We'll take it to the Rules Committee.
FF plus. Sorry? ANC, I'm sorry. ANC.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. As part of celebrating the 60 years of the Freedom Charter's principle that there shall be peace and friendship, our Deputy President undertook a three-nations visit to Sweden from the 19th to the 20th October 2015 for a binational commission between the two countries, and to Cuba on the 26th October 2015 to strengthen bilateral political, economic and trade relations between South Africa and Cuba, and Mexico lastly from the 27th to the 28th October 2015 for the Open Government Partnership Global Summit. These watershed visits are an eloquent testament that the ANC government continues to be a significant global player. Thank you.
IFP.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. The Inkatha Freedom Party's rally in celebration of the IFP's 40th year of existence held in Soweto, Gauteng, this past weekend was a great success and is a good story to tell. Thousands of loyal IFP supporters gathered at Elka Stadium in Rockville to celebrate the party's 40th decade of existence over a two-day event. As the IFP, we have good reason to be proud and many reasons to celebrate. During the magnificent celebration, the IFP also welcomed 3 members from the Democratic Alliance. This year's celebration were a good reflection time for the party as we had an opportunity to remember the reasons we started, the purpose for which we persevered, and the significance of our continued presence on the political landscape. For 40 years, education for liberation has been the clarion call of the IFP. We established this principle in the fight against Bantu education during the apartheid system, which sought to keep the majority undereducated. Education is the tool of liberation, yet our education is still marred with crisis. Our youth are asking for the opportunity to create their own future, and we believe it is the responsibility of a democratic government to empower this generation and to shape tomorrow.
Honourable Member, your term has expired.
Thank you.
FF plus.
Deputy Chairman, the South African agricultural sector is experiencing a very serious crisis, and it appears as if government doesn't have any understanding of it. According to media reports, they don't intend doing anything about it either. To farm successfully today, a farmer needs basic resources, something like fertilizer, seed, tractors, diesel, to name but a few. In the last few years, the price of fertilizer increased by 92%, seed by 88%, tractors by 105%, diesel by 86%. Over the same period, maize prices only increased by 28%. A simple profit and loss sum shows why so many farmers go bankrupt and just stop farming. You know, in the Bothaville district, which falls in the productive maize triangle, 46 farms are currently for sale at this moment. This gives an indication of the seriousness of the situation. Add to this the financial crisis is the drought. In most provinces, it's extremely dry for the second consecutive year. KwaZulu-Natal has already been declared a disaster area, and provinces as Limpopo, the Free State, North West and Northern Cape are on the way there. If government does not act timelessly, we will be faced with abnormally high food prices and famine for some. Regardless of these facts, through irresponsible comments, government continues to make farmers a scapegoat for many problems which have not been created by them but by the ANC. Please make a study of revolutions in other countries and discover in how many instances there was a direct relation between food shortages, famine, and uprising. Thank you.
ANC.
Thanks, Deputy Speaker. The community of Kamadagwa, Ndlovu in Mjini municipality in Mpumalanga will have their lives made easy by a water storage reticulation project currently being implemented in their village by the Department of Water and Sanitation. The reticulation will cover about 630 households when completed. A 1 megaliter concrete reservoir is being constructed as part of a project, and it's earmarked to be completed around December. The reticulation will ensure that the villagers have access to water right on their doorsteps, meaning they will no longer have to carry containers to fetch water from communal taps they currently use. And the concrete reservoir will ensure reliable water supply, as there will be enough storage. The project has also benefited the community in terms of job opportunities, and so far it has created about 17 job opportunities for local residents. The community members have committed to guard against illegal connections and any form of vandalism of water infrastructure, as this will affect optimal operation of the system and leave some section with difficulties in accessing the water supply. The community has appreciated the work the government of the ANC has done in meeting its commitment to the 2014 election manifesto.
Your time has expired, sir. APC.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. The APC rejoices with the residents of plots 48, 75, 99, and 100 in Oskral in Madibeng municipality on finally being able to access electricity. Despite the shenanigans of some dark forces that sought to divert the project, the APC is happy to see such critical development reach our people, importantly our rural masses. The APC would like to see all our people have access to electricity, universal access. Electricity is a powerful tool for individual and societal emancipation from the strictures of ignorance and deprivation. By merely providing electricity, the masses are hugely empowered. Such is the importance of electricity in banishing backwardness that Vladimir Lenin, on being asked what communism was, said in giving a practical response that communism is Soviet power and electrification. Congratulations to APC Provincial Commissar and Local Councillor Comrade William Mudiba for pursuing the mass line, thus ensuring that these residents of Oskral are not passive recipients of public services, but remain agents of their own development. I thank you.
ANC.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. The ANC commends the Department of Social Development on the launch of Project Mkonzo. This important program entails, among others, expediting the registration of early childhood development centers, non-profit organizations, and assisting our people to social grants and other basic services. This is done with the assistance of other government departments and local municipalities. Through this program, the department is now able to effect social changes such as the abuse of elderly persons and the unlawful deduction of their pension and other grants. We, the ANC, would like to thank the Minister of Social Development and the department for their foresight and vision in the initiation of such a project that improve the lives of our people in a meaningful way. What a good story we as the ANC can tell as we move South Africa forward. I thank you.
DA.
Thank you, Chairperson. An 8-year-old girl child in Mankweng has been raped twice this year. In the first assault, the perpetrator was a 16-year-old from the Mapudi Tomo Primary School in Gamatipa, Limpopo. The rape took place in January this year, when the victim was lured to a hideout right next to the school by another child who advised that the perpetrator had special games just for girls. The second assault took place on the school grounds by a group of 13-year-old boys who dragged the victim from toilets to the overgrown grass in the schoolyard where she was raped. Doctors' reports confirm in both instances that she was brutally raped, and in both instances the victim was able to identify her attackers. Charges were laid at the Mankweng police station. Tragically, however, the police have made no arrests or progress on either case. The DA has been reliably informed that the police did go to the school but were denied entry by the headmaster because they were in uniform. When they returned the second time in plain clothes, the headmaster again denied them access as they were not allowed to talk to school children while they were in school uniform. It would appear that nothing has been done by SABC. The DA have been informed that the 16-year-old accused has been sent to the Tomo Primary School while the 13-year-olds continue in the Mapudi Tomo Primary School. The severely traumatized victim has been withdrawn.
Your time has expired. ANC.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. The ANC notes with sadness the continuous allegation of the selling of the teaching posts. A news report by the City Press newspaper alleges that some such leaders, particularly in KZN, are selling jobs. This is bad and should not be tolerated. We condemn the selling of posts as it compromises the integrity of the education system and the professional stature of teaching. ANC welcomes the move by Minister Motsoaledi to establish an investigating team led by Professor John Volmek to investigate these allegations. We further welcome the minister has roped in the audit firm Deloitte and Touch and the Department of Justice to conduct forensic investigation in this matter. We have taken note that the investigation will not focus on the KZN province only, but on all 9 provinces. We therefore call for a speedy completion of the investigation. We also call upon any individual, government officials, teachers, SGB association who still have information on the selling of these posts to swiftly approach the investigation team. As the ANC, we need urgent conclusion of this matter, and we need to demonstrate that teaching jobs are not for sale, and those doing so should face the might of the law. I thank you.
AIC.
Thank you very much, Honourable Deputy Speaker. As AIC, we condemn the inconsiderate and unbecoming behavior on the part of Eastern Cape government in general and the Department of Basic Education in particular. The MEC for this department and his officials seem not to care about teachers, and they seem not to be equal to the task. The teachers that were appointed mid-year to permanent jobs have not yet been paid. Those that were promoted to senior positions of principalship and heads of department are still waiting for their salaries to be paid. The MEC made it worse by announcing the cut of 1,000 teaching posts in the department, though an additional amount of 1 billion was made to salary bills. It is very much disturbing that the department ran out of funds for the learner teacher support material. This cannot be accepted. The human resource section in this department is very much problematic. We thought that the MEC for this department, as a communist, would be very much willing to serve the people, but alas, nothing is happening. Should the idea of reducing the provinces be realized, the Eastern Cape should be the first to be done away with. If financial and human resources are not available, this province will take time to move from the bottom in terms of grade 12 results. Thank you very much.
ANC.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. The ANC welcomes the decision by the City of Johannesburg to launch a massive development project in the informal settlement of Zandspruit west of Johannesburg. This will see an estimated 15,000 shacks developed into a formal settlement to consist of more than 7,000 brick and mortar housing units. This progressive decision was endorsed by the City of Johannesburg's monthly council meeting last week. As the ANC, we commend this move because for too long, the people of Zandspruit have been complaining about their squalid living conditions and have even embarked on protests to demonstrate their frustration. We applaud the ANC-led City of Johannesburg for showing that they are a government that listens and concretely responds to the concerns of their citizens. We are confident that this project will change the lives of the people of Zandspruit for the better. However, we wish to bring to the attention of the people of South Africa that the racist DA in the City of Johannesburg voted against this decision. We are disappointed but not surprised by the stance from the DA because they are a party that does not believe in providing decent and dignified facilities for the black and the poor. They tried with Cosmo City, they tried with Corridors of Freedom, and they failed dismally. Even here, they have failed. That will never, under the ANC's watch, have conditions of Cape Town townships in South Africa. The people of Zandspruit and the country at large are now beginning to see DA who they are. Thank you.
DA.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. The DA condemns the brutal attack on Mr. Moses Mangwedi, a farm worker in the Free State, who was attacked by 3 men recently. Meneer Mangwedi se regterbeen is op verskeie plekke gebreek en sy linkerbeen is so hard geslaan dat sy kuit gebars is. Daar is 'n messteek in sy borskas, 'n groot sny aan sy kop waar hy met 'n lem gekap is omdat hy nie wou stil sit sodat hy doodgesteek kon word nie. Die hele palm van sy linkerhand is met steke toegewerk omdat hy die mes aan die lem gegryp het in 'n poging om homself te verdedig. Die man het sy hande agter sy rug vasgebind en sy mond met dik kleefband toegeplak. Die man met die mes wou sy keel afsny, maar die ander 2 rowers het hom oorreed om dit nie te doen nie. Thus far this year, 19 people have been murdered in farms or on farms in the Free State, of which 14 were farm workers or their family members. It is estimated that 46 attacks on Free State farms have occurred this year thus far. Attacks on farm workers in particular are on the rise, and 185 attacks and 47 murders have been recorded in 2015. Plaasaanvalle en plaasmoorde is duidelike krisis waarteen die regering gewaarsku is en dit word steeds geïgnoreer. Violence affects every person in rural South Africa, and specific statistics on farm attacks and farm murders must be made available again. The DA reiterates our call for the establishment of a specialized rural safety unit within the police, including a rural safety intelligence division that is adequately equipped, trained and resourced to deal with increasing insecurity and violent attacks on farms in South Africa. Thank you very much.
ANC.
The African National Congress congratulates our hip-hop sensation Cassper Nyovest for being the first musician to fill 20,000 seating capacity, the Dome in Northgate, Johannesburg, without the help of any international act or artist. Cassper Nyovest, whose real name is Refilwe Maele Polo, performed to a full capacity Dome arena over the weekend, fulfilling his dream and in the process achieved a feat that no other South African artist had ever achieved. We applaud Cassper Nyovest for this tremendous success, which has demonstrated the rich talent that exists within our country's music industry, especially amongst our youth. Caspar has also confirmed the enormous support for local music by our youth, which augurs well for the development of our arts, culture, and heritage. I thank you.
Deputy Speaker.
Yes, sir.
Is it parliamentary to plagiarize? Because the member just read some of the direct lines from a News 24 report and she did not reference. I mean, we can't accept plagiarism. It's actually illegal in universities. You won't even get a degree.
Yeah.
And she just read a whole statement without reference that I took everything I wrote here from News 24 because I did not buy a ticket to support Caspar Nyovest.
Honorable member, that's not a point of order. Members are allowed to make any statement they wish to, whatever their source of that. Ministerial responses, can I have an indication of ministerial? Honorable Nzimande, Honorable Nkwinti. Honorable Zokwana.
Deputy Speaker, thanks. Plagiarism must be proven, not alleged. In relation to the statement raised by the honorable member of the EFF, I want to say that as government, we're indeed very sympathetic and understanding on the legitimate concerns by the students on the course of university education. And it was for those reasons, it's not something that was raised that we are responding to it now. It's for these reasons that we established the National Student Financial Aid Scheme, which now stands at 9.5 billion rands. And it's also for this reason that the President, after meeting with the various stakeholders, decided that there shall be no fee increases in 2016. And I also stand here, Honorable Deputy Speaker, to welcome the decision by UCT and WITS in committing to insourcing workers and doing away with outsourcing. I welcome that, and it's a very, very important step. At the summit that I had convened on universities on the 15th to the 17th of October, we agreed on a range of measures and conversations and discussions that we must have on transformation. We are all committed, all the stakeholders, to continue those discussions as per the agreement of the summit, as well as those matters identified at the meeting between the President and the various stakeholders. So we, as this ANC government, were the first ones who knew that poor students must be assisted, and indeed we went ahead and assisted them. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Honorable Nkwinti.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker. Abakulus, I just want to respond to the Honorable member from the DA. The Honorable member says there's no service delivery there. That is not correct. Ward 5, Ward 6, Ward 7. Now, if you go to Skame was a mud and the houses, only mud houses and so on. But if you went there now,
Honorable members,
there is a new township.
Give the minister a chance to speak.
There is a new township built by this government. So it's correct too that it is an ANC councillor. That councillor today is asking for 1,000 for electricity for 1,250 houses. That's a councillor there, Ndlovu, Tulani Ndlovu. If you went to Ward 7, you will find that there, in fact, the toilets, because there was a member of parliament here, Mamko, she said, just focus on this thing in rural areas. You deal with health problems, etc. That's one area where we went to and constructed toilets there that, in fact, the VIP toilets there, that have helped change the attitude of people. So, but the last one, Honorable Chair, because I will be unfair, I know the Minister is going to respond of agriculture. I'll be unfair if I didn't say this, because Omnia would be saying, why did you keep quiet? 3 months ago, or in fact a couple of months ago, which culminated into this last 3 months, Omnia said, we're pledging, we've got 44 million rands worth of fertilizer for the recap farmers. Just give them tractors. We came together, we bought 13 tractors, 27 million rands. We said we pledged this. They came up with 44 million rands. We have a partnership with them. I just wanted to say that now we've got more than 29 farmers, including cooperatives, in that partnership. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Zokwana.
Thanks, Deputy Speaker. On the issue raised by the honourable member from Freedom Front on the drought situation, I would be happy if we don't listen to everything, because there's never been a decision that the department is not going to assist farmers. We're in discussions. Last week, we were in discussions with the sugar growers and referred them to relevant structures to deal with their plight. The department has, through provinces, we know that 5 provinces were declared drought-affected areas, and we use the law to make sure that they are assisted. The department has released 14 million to assist smallholder farmers to buy feed for their animals and get water in other areas. As I speak, we are busy. We have already engaged IDC as well as Land Bank to look at soft loans. The aim is to make farmers ready to make sure that when the coming season arrives in areas where they can produce. This drought problem is not only about funding being available. It's about other means we can apply to make sure that we're more smarter in agriculture. We use water in a way that can save it. Instead of using the sprinklers, we're looking at other systems like drip systems. We're looking at harvesting more water. So the debate is ongoing, sir. And I would be happy if, because I addressed recently a meeting of farmers, let's not listen under let's talk what is happening, because we're committed. There's no way we can ever, no, don't tell me about whoever said what at that time. We are the department. I'm not going to comment on other department, what other people have said. On the issue of attacks on farmers.
Honorable Minister, I'm afraid your time has expired.
Oh, thanks.
Honorable Zokota. Okay. Honorable Deputy Minister of Basic Education and Vasurti.
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker. I have 3 statements to respond to. The first comes from the Deputy DA. Indeed, it is correct that our schools should be safe and caring environments for our learners where they ought to be protected. I am rather surprised, amazed, and shocked at the fact that a principal of a school would deny access to a police officer, whether in or without uniform. The reality of the matter is that more than 15,000 of our schools are in collaboration with the South African Police Service, in terms whereof they provide support to each one of those schools. And therefore, the conduct of the principal, if indeed it is so, is totally inconsistent with this collaboration agreement and with the policy. If the information is provided to me, I will take it upon myself to refer it to the Minister of Police to investigate immediately why the matter is not being investigated swiftly enough. And indeed, the Minister of Justice has indicated if at all it is with the prosecuting authority, then he would take the appropriate steps. We are indeed shocked and dismayed at what had occurred there. With regard to the issue of the Eastern Cape, it would be very, very helpful if we had more and better information. The general sweep of the statement does not assist, and if the Honourable Member could provide me with the information. For example, the reality in the Eastern Cape is there are thousands of unqualified temporary teachers, whereas at the same time there are many teachers in addition or in surplus who are in district offices. There is an arrangement with the labour unions, and they've agreed to it in terms of the Education Labour Relations Council, that the first preference would be given to qualified, competent additional staff, thereafter to qualified temporary teachers. The termination of those contracts might well be, and I don't have the information, be of those who are unqualified temporary teachers who are going to be replaced by teachers in surplus, this would affect the budget positively and it indeed would make a difference. As indicated last week, there are enormous challenges in the Eastern Cape, but certainly we can celebrate progress that has been made in relation to nutrition, in relation to transportation, in relation to the provision of teaching. Thank you very much.
Deputy Minister. Any ministerial replies? Any additional? None. Thank you very much. Honorable members, that concludes member statements and that concludes ministerial responses, I said. Honorable members, now come to the statement by the Minister of Health on the second global tuberculosis caucus of parliamentarians. Ndade Motsoaledi, bua le rona ntate.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker, my colleagues, ministers and deputy ministers, Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Health, honorable members of the Portfolio Committee, honorable members of the House, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I welcome the opportunity granted to me by the Speaker to address this House on a matter of importance beyond borders, beyond boundaries, beyond countries, beyond ideologies, and indeed beyond party politics. This matter of immense global importance I'm speaking about is a disease called TB. I'm sure that many of you here are surprised, maybe even confused, why this is suddenly a big issue that warrants a parliamentary discussion of this nature. This confusion is not surprising, given the fact that TB has been around for ages, long before any one of us in this house was born, unlike HIV/AIDS, which is only 30 years old. Actually, Robert Koch, a physician from the then Prussia, utilized a new staining method and applied it to sputum of TB patients, revealing for the first time that the agent causing this disease was an organism called Mycobacterium tuberculosis, hence the name TB. He made these results public on the 24th of March, 1882, in a famous lecture entitled Über Tuberculosis, which was published 3 weeks later. Since 1882, 24 March has been known as World TB Day. I am told that the word Über means very big. Even though Koch diagnosed it in 1882, evidence of TB was identified in Egyptian mummies centuries before him. Since the late 19th century, diagnostics and treatment of TB have been available, putting everyone to rest and to relax. But in the past 200 years, TB still killed more people than smallpox, malaria, bubonic plague, cholera, influenza, Ebola, and HIV/AIDS all added together. The surprising thing is that despite all this evidence, TB has not brought in as much agency among health activists, scientists, politicians, and indeed even leaders around the world. In his book, Infections and Inequalities, Professor Paul Farmer, the Presley professor at Harvard Medical School, made the following astute observations, and I open quotes. In 1995, more people died of TB than any other year in history. At least 30 million people will die from tuberculosis in the next 10 years if current trends continue. Millions more will watch helplessly as friends and family members waste away, red with coughing and sweating with fever. They may wish that medical science could cure this terrible disease. The truth is, medical science can. Since 1952, the world has had effective and powerful drugs that could make every TB patient well again, close quote. Exactly 14 years later, Professor Farmer again lamented the state of TB in the world, and I open quotes. The doctor in me insists that no one should die of tuberculosis today. It is completely curable. Yet, it is at the same time the world leading infectious cause of death among young adults. An estimated 3 million people are dying of each year from tuberculosis. This figure comes as a surprise to many who read more frequently in their newspapers about Ebola or flesh-eating bacteria than about tuberculosis. Exerting its toll among the world's poor, tuberculosis has ceased to occasion much interest either in scientific circles or in popular press. Tuberculosis has been virtually ignored for 20 years and more, close quotes. Honorable members, when Professor Farmer mentioned these words, there was no Ebola in West Africa. He said it long before that. But a decade ago, our own departed icon, Nelson Mandela, himself a former TB sufferer, remember that in South Africa we are the only country who had 2 Nobel Peace Laureates suffering from TB. The other is Emeritus Archbishop Desmond Tutu. But Nelson Mandela said the following during the International AIDS Conference held in Bangkok, Thailand in 2004, and I quote, "The world has made defeating AIDS a top priority. This is a blessing, but TB remains ignored. Today we are calling on the world to recognize that we can't fight AIDS unless we do more to fight TB as well." Close quotes. By some progress reported in the World Organization TB report of 2015, which was released last week, the world today is still confronted with challenges of combating TB. The global TB reports estimate that 9.6 million people were infected with TB in that year, and with 1.5 million having died of its devastation in 2014. This situation is worsened by the world's inability to find about 3 million people of those infected with TB in order to provide them with life-saving treatment. This means, ladies and gentlemen, honorable members, that at present, there are 9 million people around the world who are believed to have TB, but only 6 million are known, and some are on treatment. 3 million don't even know that they've got TB, and we have to start a search for these people around the whole world. Not finding these people and not successfully treating them has resulted in a new and more scary form of TB, that is multi-drug resistant TB, and also extreme drug resistant TB. In 1920, in Paris, France, a group of physicians and researchers from 31 countries came together to form the union, whose aim was to fight what they call the white plague, TB. This union is now called the International Union Against TB, a lung disease, and it meets annually in various countries. In their annual World Conference held in Barcelona in Spain in 2014, I was invited in my capacity as the chairperson of the Stop TB Partnership Board to be a guest speaker. The executive director of the union, Dr. Jose Luis Castro, emphasized the need to engage parliamentarians in the global effort to fight TB. At the conference was also the Right Honourable Nick Herbert, a member of parliament from the UK, who co-chairs the UK All-Party Parliamentary Group on Global TB. Also at the conference were 7 other members of parliament from France, India, Kenya, and Tanzania. It is at this conference where the Global TB Caucus was launched on the 27th of October, and I was requested to co-chair the caucus together with Honourable Nick Herbert. This caucus of parliamentarians has a vision, and the vision is simple: a world free of TB. To drive this vision, a declaration called the Barcelona Declaration was adopted and is now in the form of a pledge. MPs, members of parliament who are interested to join the fight are encouraged to sign the pledge. Currently, 610 parliamentarians from 97 countries have joined the caucus and signed onto the pledge, and today I wish to urge every member of parliament in our country to join the Global TB Caucus by signing the pledge. Due to unavailability of time, I can't read the pledge to you, but to summarize, it reads as follows, and I open quotes. We, the undersigned, as political representatives of various people of the world, recognize that every man, woman, and child should be able to live their lives free from the tyranny of disease. Hereby declare, 1, that tuberculosis has killed a greater number of people than any other infectious disease in human history, and continues to be responsible for 1.5 million deaths a year, often affecting the most vulnerable, and that it should be a global political priority. 2, that the current rate of progress in combating TB is slow, such that the disease will remain a threat to social and economic well-being of millions of citizens around the world for centuries to come, and that accelerating progress against the disease should be recognized by all governments and to be an interest for all. 4, that the current drugs for treatment are inadequate, that vaccines and diagnostics are insufficient, and that commercial market for pharmaceutical development has failed TB patients globally. 6, that TB co-infections such as HIV and diabetes compound the challenge faced by patients during treatment, hindering efforts to reduce rates of disease, the rates of disease and increasing the mortality and morbidity, and that healthcare system should integrate programs for these co-infections. Specifically, we demand that every patient, regardless of who they are, where they are, or their ability to pay, shall have access to quick, accurate diagnosis and high quality treatment, and that TB diagnosis and treatment must never result in the impoverishment of patients or their families. And to this effect, we hereby agree to establish a new global parliamentary caucus to press for a more effective response to TB epidemic, working with official organizations including the World Health Organization, UNITAID, the Global Fund to Stop TB, HIV, AIDS, and Malaria, the Stop TB Partnership, the Union, and the UNAIDS, and with non-governmental organizations across the world, reaching across political and geographic divides, and seeking to build commitment in our own countries and beyond to secure an end to the TB epidemic within a generation. Honorable members, I humbly request that every member signs this pledge as our individual and collective commitment to ending the scourge of TB in our lifetime. Over the next few days, my office will work with the chief whips to get the approval of members to sign you up. Once sign up, you'll see your names on the Global TB Caucus website. The caucus will meet on the 30th of November 2015 here in Cape Town, just before the opening of the International Lung Conference, which is coming to Cape Town on our shores. About 40 parliamentarians from 20 countries have indicated that they plan to attend this caucus meeting. South Africa has been granted 10 places for South African parliamentarians to participate. We request that the chief whips help to put together a delegation representative of our parliamentary institutions to participate in this important meeting. Signing the pledge is just the beginning. Concrete action is needed. The World Health Organization has established a global target for elimination of TB. They say by 2035, the incidence of TB must be 10 per 100,000 population. Presently, it is 250 per 100,000 population. Madam Speaker, the Geneva-based Stop TB Partnership, which, as I've already said, I have the honor of chairing, estimated that if we continue fighting TB around the world at the rate at which we are doing, we will only reach this 10 people per 100,000 by the year 2180. It means at the rate at which the world is going, it's going to take us 180 years to eradicate TB. None of us needs to have this, and nobody in the world wants to see this. We want to see something happening. Coming back home, in March this year, on World TB Day, the Deputy President, Cyril Ramaphosa, launched a massive TB screening campaign, because it's only through screening that we'll find this missing 3 million people. In our country, we analyzed where the vulnerable groups are, and we found 3 most vulnerable people. These are people in correctional services, 150,000 of them, people working in the mines, 500,000 of them, especially those who are working in the gold mines, given the high level of silica dust, people living in peri-mining communities. Furthermore, if you are HIV positive, your chances of contracting TB increases 3 times. If you have got silicosis, your chances increases 6 times. And if you are both HIV positive and you have got silicosis, your chances increase 18 times. Honorable members, for those of you who are diabetic in this house, please know that if you allow your diabetes to get out of control, your chances of getting TB increases 5 times. Other vulnerable groups are pregnant women, children, people living in informal settlement, and health workers who are daily exposed to the infection. We also analyzed our districts, 52 districts in the country, and we found that number 1 in the whole country in the prevalence of TB is Luvyalepuzwa in the Free State. Number 2 is Kenneth Kaunda in Northwest. Number 3 is Waterberg in Limpopo. Number 4 is West Rand in Gauteng. Number 5 is Bujanala in Northwest. And number 6 is Kukune in Limpopo. If you can look at this list, it's all linked to mining activities. We are screening using this priority list of people. Honorable members, on 24 March 2011, the then Deputy President Rekgale Mamotlandi launched 3 interventions. One of them was gene expert technology, which has revolutionized the diagnosis of TB, reducing the period to diagnose from 1 week to 2 hours. In some countries, it takes about 10 months. 10 weeks to diagnose TB, but gene expert has reduced that to only 2 hours. It has also revolutionized the diagnosis of MDR-TB from 3 months to only 2 hours. And I wish to report that South Africa is one country with the most coverage of the gene expert technology, and we are very happy about that. In addition, we have bought digital X-ray machines, appointed 9 inspectors for the mines, and also bought gene expert technology machines. Since this launch, honorable members, 6 months ago, we have done 517,000 screening tests in correctional service facilities, because correctional service inmates are screened on arrival in the facility, on incarceration, on discharge. Of the people in the mining communities, we have already screened 600,000 of them in the past 6 months. Our 9 inspectors who are working the mines, they tell us that 90% of the mines are routinely screening for TB. We're very happy of that. Honorable members, I call on every member of this House to underscore screening. Outside there, we have got all the screening equipment you can ever need. Digital X-ray, gene expert, everything. Don't leave this house today before you screen. Everybody can suffer TB. I want to take this opportunity to introduce to you the people we call our TB ambassadors. There are 16 people who agreed to be ambassadors in South Africa. Today in this house, 6 are attending, and I'll call their names to introduce them, and I hope they will stand. The first one is Ms. Jerry Elston, who is a media personality, who herself previously suffered TB. Dr. Deline von Delft, a medical doctor, who also contracted TB. Ms. Masasa Mbangeni, a TV actress. Ms. Thembi Siete, a musician and actress. Prince Nanganiso Zulu, His Majesty King Zwelithini's son, who also suffered TB and agreed to be our ambassador. The sixth one, Ms. Pomeza Tisile. That young lady remained standing, was one of the most, I don't know whether I'll say unfortunate and later fortunate South Africans from Khayelitsha in Western Cape. She contracted TB, which continued into extreme drug-resistant TB. She had to be treated for 2 years. To get her cured of TB, she had to swallow 20,000 tablets. That small body. She had to swallow 20,000 tablets just to treat her. And unfortunately, one of the treatments for drug-resistant TB is an injection called streptomycin. It can kill your hearing. She went totally deaf. Fortunately, a few weeks ago, we've been able to put a cochlear implant, so today she can hear me. Only a few weeks ago, she was unable to hear me. Another person who is not necessarily an ambassador but has been working with me, Dr. Victor Ramatisela, is sitting there. Dr. Ramatisela, I'm sure is the man you see. Is the man you see every Saturday on Bonita's house call on TV. He himself suffered TB twice. He has been hired by the Stop TB Partnership to be my technical assistant. So when you see me around with me, it's because he's working for this Stop TB Partnership in Geneva to help me in the work I'm doing. Let me conclude by reiterating what I said earlier, that members of parliament must be the center of challenges, must be at the center of challenges that fine citizens they represent. No other battle desperately requires leadership, advocacy and guidance by parliamentarians than the battle against TB, in the same way as we did against HIV and AIDS. Ladies and gentlemen, as I've counted the names, Nelson Mandela, Bishop Tutu, and all the luminaries there, you can see that anybody can get TB. Only those who don't breathe cannot get TB. As long as you are breathing and you are living on this planet, you can get TB. So let's get into the battle. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. We now call Honorable W. James to continue the debate.
Chair, last week, as Minister Motsoaledi pointed out, the WHO released its 20th Global TB report. It showed that 1.5 million people died of TB in 2014. This means on average that more than 4,000 people died from the disease daily. South Africa is a high TB burden country. The Department of Health's annual report showed that only 60% of TB-related targets were met, even though 99.8% of the expenditure target was met in Program 3, under which TB falls. The Global TB Caucus is a fabulous opportunity for the Department of Health to further up its game, but moreover, for public representatives to get on top of the tuberculosis crisis that afflicts the world. The entire DA Parliamentary Caucus has signed, all 102 of us have signed the Global TB Caucus Barcelona Declaration. And I join Minister Motsoaledi in urging every other member of this House to do the same. With signature comes an obligation. It's an obligation to team up with community leaders, with health professionals, and citizens in our constituencies to prevent, to detect, and to treat tuberculosis. The research and development environment, colleagues, could not be better. The WHO reports that there are 15 vaccine candidates in clinical trials. Vaccine will prevent the TB infections, which, as you know, is caused by a bacteria, and is communicated by droplet spray from person to person in densely populated settlements from taking hold. A diagnostic platform is under development to test at the point of care, including at home, using a device that is lighter, that is less expensive, and has a much longer battery. With much more efficient diagnosis comes much better surveillance. 8 new or repurposed anti-TB drugs are in advanced phases of clinical development. For the first time in 6 years, an anti-TB drug candidate is in phase 1 testing. Several new TB treatment regimens for drug-susceptible and drug-resistant TB are in phase 2 and 3 trials, and at least 2 of those are scheduled to start towards the end of this year. The WHO has also issued guidelines for the use of 2 key drugs known as bedaquiline and delamanid. By the end of 2014, 43 countries had used these treatments to deal with patients for multi-drug resistance tuberculosis. Studies in Niger and Cameroon found that a 12-month-long regimen works among patients who have not been exposed to second-line drugs. But to take advantage of these new developments requires, firstly, a functional primary healthcare system. Ours, as you know, is under construction, in some provinces working better than in others, and it is being driven centrally, in fact, presently using the National Health Insurance or NHS grants to build staff and to staff and to build ideal clinics, something we support. Secondly, infection control measures must be in place at all hospitals and clinics. Most of our public hospitals do not meet minimum standards because they are largely in debt. Treasury must assess the scale of this debt, which has been made worse by misspending in those provincial governments, including the Eastern Cape, Free State, Limpopo, Mpumalanga, and the Northwest. Thirdly, competent care at existing TB hospitals and the new ones and wards under construction led by the Council of Scientific and Industrial Research, the CSIR, on behalf of the Department of Health, the Centers for Disease Control, and the Global Fund to Fight AIDS, TB, and Malaria. This emerging infrastructure, which is very impressive in scale, must in the first instance deal with the 17 TB hotspots in the Eastern Cape. There are 3 hotspots in the Eastern Cape, 1 in the Free State, 2 in Gauteng, 1 in KZN, 2 in Limpopo, 1 in Mpumalanga, 2 in the Northwest, and 2 in the Western Cape. Effective interventions at affected prisons. As you know, TB thrives in overpopulated and confined quarters. Prison surveillance should be scaled up, and infected patients should be moved into separate TB hospitals. Care for minors who contracted TB because of vulnerabilities, silicosis and other lung diseases bring. And in this respect, mining companies and mine trade unions have not done enough, as the current class action suit indicates. And finally, to train surveillance detectives and infectious disease physicians and nurses on scale. The concept, colleagues, of a proactive surveillance detective is a new one. After the devastating Ebola epidemic of West Africa, the Global Health Security Agenda identified the training and employment of surveillance detectives as critical to effective management of pathogenic and other disease outbreaks. South Africa has a shortage of infectious disease physicians. The last time I checked, and I may be wrong, but the last time I checked, the Eastern Cape had only just one specialist, in the name of Dr. John Black, who works at Livingston Hospital. Not enough medical doctors specializing in infectious disease are in training. Not enough medical doctors are being retained in their existing jobs. The Health Systems Trust reports that the Free State's chaotic health system lost 177 medical doctors in 2014 and described the exit as unprecedented. According to the Hospital Association of South Africa, we have about 6 doctors per 10,000 people, far below the global average of 15 per 10,000, and certainly not enough to turn the tide against TB. Our doctor-to-population ratio is 0.8, Brazil's is 1.9, the UK 2.8, the Ukraine 3.5, and Argentina 3.9. We have to increase the capacity of our medical schools. Loosen the cartel, and I use the word deliberately, the cartel that exists between professional associations and the medical schools, and by partnering more effectively with the private sector. New approaches, such as using satellite training units to create rural registrar posts in internal medicine, infectious diseases, and other specialties relevant to TB should be explored. Finally, we looked to the contribution the first cohort of clinical assistants in training will make. Colleagues, TB is a disease of poverty. Eliminating poverty is compelling, therefore, as the TB scourge illustrates. It is our most important national imperative. Prosperity is built on a healthy and not a sick nation. Finally, health should be a bipartisan issue. When there are good ideas on the table and good initiatives on the making, the governing ANC and the official opposition, the DA, should not hesitate to act together. We will not act together when the ideas are bad and the initiatives are misguided. The Global TB Caucus is a very good idea and a welcome initiative, and the DA will therefore support it with enthusiasm. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Honourable Chiwani.
Thank you very much, Chair and honourable members. Minister, I hope in your stalls outside the campaign also includes testing of HIV, because you know very well that TB and HIV are intertwined. In fact, they're interwoven. They depend on each other. So I hope that that initiative outside as well has got HIV testing. The second Global Tuberculosis Caucus of Parliamentarians, founded in 2014 as a platform for global response to TB epidemic, is long overdue to deal with the disease that more than any other has caused untold human suffering and death in the world for a very prolonged period of time. TB localization is worldwide, and according to the WHO, about 9 million people worldwide live with TB, and out of these, 3 million people are found in Africa. The World Health Organization has declared occupational TB also as a global emergency. International Labour Organization lists TB amongst an occupational hazard since 1950. TB in all its forms, including MDR, XDR, remains the second deadliest killer in the world and in Africa. Although programs have been put in place to combat this problem, the current government has not intensified programs with regard to the primary, the secondary, and the tertiary campaigns. In 2013, the world TB stats were standing at 126 per 100,000 people, while in South Africa, statistics were sitting at 860 per 100,000 people. Health workers' TB statistics were sitting at 1,113 per 100,000 people. 62% of the active TB cases are HIV-positive people. The relationship between TB and HIV has developed into a potent killing machine. It seems Koida or Odimwa are a wild ghost that seems not to be understood for their purpose and are also not enforced by the National Department of Health to perform their duties as expected. Government should enforce policy and legislation compliance by industry where TB has proved to be a serious problem, especially in the mining communities and the mines themselves. The spread of TB in this country is linked to many facets. Poor living conditions of overcrowding due to poverty that the ruling party is failing to alleviate. The lack of access to quality health care due to poor state of public health facility and primary health care program with regard to TB management. An X-ray machine is an essential immediate diagnostic tool in TB diagnosis, but almost all clinics in this country do not have X-ray facilities. Even in your so-called ideal clinic that you have pegged in the NHI, the X-ray facility has not been included there, which has proved in many serious cases, through just the X-ray itself, we have been able to diagnose TB and treat. And in fact, you know, Minister, that in your time, when you used to practice, you used to make a diagnosis of TB solely on the basis of the X-ray, which is immediate. It doesn't waste time. Public hospitals have become a death camps due to their poor states. Just a hospital here in Cape Town, Masana Hospital in a village I come from called Bushbuckridge, is a death, it's a hellhole. That's why people refer to it. They don't even go there. The commodification of health remains one of the root causes of this problem. TB drugs remain exorbitant in such a huge demand. This goes against the grain of our constitutional democracy, which gives everyone the right to access to quality health care. As things stand, thank you very much. As things stand, only people with money are saved from this condition. If by any chance they are,
Honorable Chiwani,
if they are any chance are able to acquire it,
has expired. Thank you very much, Honorable.
Under these conditions,
Honorable
the country has got no chance in winning
thank
this
you very
epidemic.
much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Honorable Nkomo.
Thank you very much. The IFP congratulates the Minister of Health for being appointed as the co-chair of the Global TB Caucus, and we applaud the declaration or the Barcelona Declaration. Tuberculosis remains one of the leading causes of death in this country, and we have one of the highest incidences of TB prevalence of any country in the world, with rapid increase of TB infections over the last 20 years. Whilst it is very commendable that the Honourable Minister is taking a leading role at the Global Tuberculosis Caucus, we wish to remind him that charity begins at home and that his #1 priority must be the people of South Africa. Organizations such as Santa are reporting that the war against TB is being lost in South Africa, and this is mainly through poor nutrition, of many of our people as well as within our vulnerable communities. In this regard, Minister, feeding schemes require greater government support as well as creating work so that our unemployed can be taken on board. Government should also ensure that high-risk communities are adequately educated in terms of proper nutrition and TB awareness and the prevention campaign. We also need to ensure that initiatives such as those that are created or that are being orchestrated in partnerships with the private sector, especially in the screening of TB, are actually promoted. And we need to encourage as many people as possible in our country to know their TB health status. Medical treatment of those infected must be immediately done, and it should be done correctly. Many people are now acquiring drug-resistant TB because of inadequate TB treatment. This can be for a number of reasons, including the following. It could also be an issue of improper treatment regime, the wrong drugs that are prescribed, or substandard drugs that are used. The IFP takes note of a particular area in the Barcelona Declaration, which promotes the use of the vaccines as well as diagnostic procedures. Would like to encourage and also to request the Minister to look at this very strongly. The combination of the devastating health impact will need to be taken into consideration as well. There are three areas which I'm going to address, which is the harsh burden of treatment and the often faced isolation of social exclusion, which requires a holistic address by our national health programs. TB is mostly prevalent in South Africa, especially in the mining areas and the vulnerable communities. And I heard the Minister mentioning these groups, but we would like a lot to be put into these communities. We can ill afford to get it wrong in terms of both treatment and prevention of this dread disease, as the current progress in combating it remains just too low. The IFP supports this report, and the president of the IFP and the IFP Caucus will definitely be signing the declaration. I thank you.
Honorable members, order. I just wish to convey to our guests and TB ambassadors in the gallery that the rules of the House unfortunately bars you from participating in the processes of the House. So I'm very sorry to say that, but that is how the rules are. The participation can be in form of clapping hands or using your cameras and all. But you are very welcome, and we wish you a good stay in Parliament. Thank you very much. Honorable Sheikh Imam.
Thank you, Honorable House Chair, Minister, other ministers in the House today, and our special guests who are an inspiration to those that have either suffered from TB or continue to do so. Let me start off by commending the efforts of the Minister and also congratulating him on his appointment as the co-chair. Colleagues, recent reports from the World Health Organization indicate that South Africa is one of the countries with the highest burden of tuberculosis. Approximately 1% of our population develops active TB annually, and the World Health Organization estimates that up to 450,000 South Africans are currently suffering from tuberculosis. What is most alarming about the statistics is that South Africa is ranked third highest in the world as far as TB infections are concerned. The two leading countries, China and India, have populations of approximately 1.357 billion and 1.25 billion respectively. When viewed against these figures, it is obvious that South Africa's TB infection rate is disproportionately high. The disproportionate high prevalence might well be interlinked with the high prevalence rate of HIV we have in South Africa, and this is evident in the latest figures from the South African Department of Health, which shows that 73% of TB patients are also HIV positive. Medical statistics suggest that the high prevalence of HIV is fueling the TB epidemic which we are currently facing. We take note of the sterling effort in treating TB patients in South Africa And we also commend the Department of Health for additional funding allocated to the fight against TB, in particular, the expansion of the comprehensive HIV grants to include TB. We further take note that whilst there was underspending in some programs in health, the program on HIV and TB has grown and must be welcomed without reservation. However, Honourable Minister, we would like to see the scope of this fight against TB expanded. The health policy of the National Freedom Party places an emphasis on approaching health-related issues and challenges in a holistic manner. We therefore argue that whilst expanding the medical care of people with TB, we should also look at issues of malnutrition and unsanitary living conditions as contributing factors in the relentless growth of the TB epidemic in South Africa. Our submission is that addressing malnutrition and unsanitary living conditions will largely affect the poorest and most vulnerable South African citizens, who will go a long way in making current TB treatment programs more effective and ultimately eradicating the burden of tuberculosis in South Africa. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Liman. Honorable Macheke.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, Honorable Ministers, and Honorable Members. Tuberculosis represents a threat to both the lives and livelihoods of people in the world, and no country can fight it alone. It is a global threat. In this regard, the Global TB Caucus, as well as the Second Summit, is fully supported as an essential step to foment a truly robust and sustainable global response to this global challenge. South Africa has a high burden of diseases from tuberculosis, with a growing number of multi-drug resistant TB cases, which is partially due to inadequate or incomplete treatment. Tuberculosis disproportionately affects the poor, the individuals who are already immunocompromised, marginalized, living in rural areas and in informal settlements, without adequate access to directly observed therapy short courses, dispensing health facilities, and the poor with inadequate health infrastructure. Its social impact is enormous due to the prolonged and dilapidating nature of the disease, the large incidence of TB cases, and the stigma associated with it. Economically, TB impact includes loss of income among those who are sick, as well as their caretakers. It devastates individuals and their families, and it decreases gross domestic product. It is the cause as well as a consequence of poverty. In acknowledging and welcoming the Department's National Tuberculosis Management Guidelines 2014, as well as the TB Directly Observed Treatment Short Course Strategy Coordination, the following programmatic areas should be high in the execution of the guidelines and strategy. 1, the DOTCS treatment strategy should be universally implemented and be expanded to cover the most rural areas. Increase early diagnosis and treatment of TB to limit its spread. Invest in health infrastructure with well-equipped facilities and proper diagnostic tools. Strengthen the HIV prevention. Further, the global strategy and targets for tuberculosis prevention, care, and control of the World Health Organization should be supported, with its emphasis on integrated patient-centered care and prevention, bold policies and supportive systems, and intensified research and innovation. Other technical interventions that South Africa should consider include support and create an enabling environment, including social support packages, development of a patient-centered care and treatment approach, identification and elimination of barriers to accessing TB services by those most at risk, engagement of leaders, representatives of key population, both public and private health providers, in encouraging and supportive early and active finding and care to enhance treatment completion.
Thank
and
you very much, Honorable
a vision of a
Macheke.
South Africa world-free TB is ambitious but achievable.
Thank you.
We support.
Thank you very much. Honorable Carter.
Thank you, Chairperson, Minister, House. TB is a global concern, and more so in South Africa, particularly given the high prevalence of HIV/AIDS and also the high prevalence of silicosis in the mining industry. We have to give credit where credit is due. the Minister's involvement in the Global TB Caucus of Parliamentarians and the Stop TB Partnership Board must be commended. On the Global TB website, I noted, and I quote, "The summit proposal began to gather momentum when Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi, Health Minister of South Africa and Chairman of a Stop TB Partnership Board, added his support for the initiative and stated that he would attend." Now, Minister, Chairperson, how do we turn good intentions into concrete outcomes? To a large extent, this is the nexus of a dilemma that we face in the country. In many respects, we have good intentions and good policy, but we fail with implementation. Chair, over the last couple of months, we regularly read about the shortage of treatment in our hospitals. Now, the discontinuation example of IV rifampicin used to treat critically ill TB patients, as well as those with drug-resistant bacterial infections, is really leaving the medical profession on the back foot. How will this affect our patients, as well as our already tight budget, with hospitals being forced to use alternatives such as linezolid? Now, according to Professor Guy Richards from Wits, the alternative drug linezolid is dramatically more expensive, number one, and is also not as well tested for treating TB as rifampicin. So a different source stated that linezolid could cost around 8,500 rand per patient per month in the public sector. In the private sector and NGOs, it could even be double that amount. Chair, Minister, South Africa should pool demand with other countries to create a more stable, attractive market to keep drug suppliers in production, especially where there's smaller quantities like IVs. The rise of drug-resistant TB is also a major public health problem. New medicines such as bedequiline, which have shown promising results in phase 2 trials, can provide a potential chance of cure for select patients that have no other treatment options. Access to bedaquiline is already available in a number of countries under compassionate use, but remains unavailable to patients in need in South Africa, except for the few patients that are currently on the clinical trials. The treatment has received conditional guidelines from the WHO. The Medical Control Council, through you, Minister, must approve use of a promising phase 3 drug for compassionate use. Archbishop Tutu recently said that the fight against TB needs to be, and I quote, our next liberation struggle. Minister, we support the declaration. We will surely sign it, and if we get invited, we will also attend the summit. I thank you.
Thank you very much. Honourable Dakley.
Thank you, Chair. The theme of this year's World TB Day, Reach the 3 million, Reach, Treat, Cure Everyone, reflects the reality of a large proportion of tuberculosis patients going undetected each year, resulting in continued mortality, transmission, and growing drug resistance. Clearly, greater attention does need to be drawn to the need for a continued global commitment to finding, diagnosing, treating and curing tuberculosis, and accelerating progress toward ending the epidemic by 2035. New potent strains of tuberculosis are emerging that are resistant to available antibiotics, posing a major threat. Multi-drug resistant tuberculosis, we are told, requires a lengthier and more difficult treatment and can be 20 times more expensive than traditional treatment regimens and is a drain on any nation's health budget. Extensively drug-resistant tuberculosis, a severe form of multi-drug resistance, responds to even fewer available medicines, and the ACDB hopes that new drugs will succeed in changing TB's global trajectory, noting that there are some exciting updates in drug development. Another critical challenge is the deadly combination of HIV and tuberculosis, as we've heard. Each fuels the progress of the other in infected patients and is particularly common in South Africa. Peter Mabalane, Community Services Manager at Santa, is concerned that in South Africa, TB is being neglected and is in the shadow of HIV/AIDS. SANAC has been accused of excluding TB programs while fighting HIV. This is, of course, highly concerning, knowing TB is the #1 killer in South Africa. Unlike HIV, there is no direct funding for TB from the Department of Health, as TB programs are incorporated in HIV programs. Concerns have been expressed that there's not enough information on TB out in the provinces. People don't know who to go to for information about it. They operate on old information and do not know the difference between pulmonary TB and any other kind. Today, there is 1 pill a day for HIV, but when it comes to TB and vaccines like BCG, we are told not every clinic even has the vaccine. We note, however, that yesterday it was reported that Cipla Metpro has sealed a deal to supply South Africans with a variety of vaccines, including BCG, which is administered to newborn infants to prevent tuberculosis, the only vaccine against TB. The ACDP calls on government to ensure TB treatment is being prioritized and to directly focus on TB rather than linking it as a secondary issue within other programs. Presently, South Africa is unlikely to reach the Millennium Development Goal target of reducing TB deaths by 50% in 2015. Honourable Minister, the ACDP does support the declaration and initiatives envisioned. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Duckley. Honorable Donjwa, to close the response.
Mandibulise sihlalo wendlu yowisomthetho obekekileyo. Ndibulise kungqongqoshe nongqongqoshe abakhoyo, ungqongqoshe wezempilo namasekela. Ndibulise kubo bonke abantu abakhoyo apha endlini neendwendwe zethu. Namhlanje sime kule ndawo singumbutho wesizwe sizokuxelela abantu balapha eMzantsi Afrika ekungakumbi iimpula zikalujaca ukuba esi sifo ekuthiwa xa sibizwa emakhaya sisifo sephepha abathi abakhumshayo yi-TB. Yintoni na ekufuneka yenziwe? Yintoni na ekufuneka siyenzile siluluntu? Kodwa ekungaphezulu siyavuya ngqongqoshe singumbutho wesizwe sithi simile kule ndawo sizokukuseka sibulela nangoko into ba uthe wonyulwa kuba kuyacaca into ba uMzantsi Afrika unesakhono yaye uzimisele ukuba impilo yabantu yalapha eMzantsi Afrika ingakumbi ibe kwiqondo elilungileyo. Yintoni ke ngoko efuneka yenziwe ngabantu bendlu yowisomthetho awathi amakhumsha xa ebiza zii-public representatives. I-public representatives ngokwamakhumsha, they must take the lead. Is it only about signing a pledge? No. Is it only about blaming game and politics? No. Is it only about standing here and saying big words? No. It's about ensuring that that young child, that old woman, that unemployed young man and woman understand that there are ABCs in ensuring that you prevent TB. And what do we mean about that? Washing of hands. When you cough, you close your mouth. When you in the room, you open windows so that people understand. Because the danger, sime apa, sihlalo bekekileyo, sibiza amagama amakhulu, baba abantu phaya emakhaya bengayazi into yokuba yintoni ekufuneka yenziwe. Yes, we do understand, and we believe that TB knows no boundaries. TB has got no political affiliation. TB, whether you are educated, whether you have got money, but what is important is what is it that we are to do? And we are standing here as the African National Congress, commending government of the African National Congress led by Minister Motsoaledi, that in fact they have they had developed a program that is to ensure that now diagnosing a TB patient does not take too long. That is why South Africa is the first African country and the fourth in the world to provide highly sophisticated instrument known as gene expert machine to mitigate TB. Given the significance of these machines, the Department of Health has provided and distributed about 287 of them to the National Health Laboratory Services centers and correctional facilities to diagnose TB with a reasonable time compared to the past, where duration of test was taken a week to be confirmed. Between March 2011 and June 15, these tests were done from correctional services. According to the recent studies, the gene expert has a significant improvement with preventing, dictating, diagnosing, and reducing the incidence of MDR-TB cases. In this screening that today is then being displayed in Parliament, number of members here have spoken about treatment. Number of members here from right across political parties have identified the treatment that is to be used. But I think as the African National Congress, what is key for us is people are to be empowered. People are to be empowered that it is important that when then you are diagnosed and you are then put on treatment, you must complete your regime. Because if you don't complete the regime of your treatment, you are likely to be resistant when you are, and by that, you are then a danger, not only to yourself, but to the community at large. The Department of Health has also embarked on the 3-year mass TB screening campaign that seeks to reduce the number of new infections and related deaths. The campaign is largely focused on vulnerable communities, those that the Minister has already alluded. Progress to TB interventions. The Association of TB and HIV and AIDS continue to be a challenge. However, there have been noticeable improvements that the Department of Health has made. The following are some. The department has improved the treatment of new TB from 75% 2013-2014 to 82.5% 2014-2015. It has improved on reducing pulmonary TB default rate from 6.2 2013-14 to 5.7 in 2015-15. It has also improved in reducing TB deaths rate from a target of 6% to 4.8 performance in 2014-2014. It has also succeeded in getting Correctional Service Center to conduct routine TB screening from target 50% to 78% achieved. It has screened 140,000 committee members in the 6th district, and it has appointed 9 inspectors to oversee the provision of TB services by the mines. We are then requesting, Honourable Minister, that the educating and the empowering of community health workers is going to be very important in our communities. We ensure that the state of TB institutions and the staffing that is quite a challenge in ensuring that this scourge is then being addressed. We think that that is going to be important. It is not true, Honourable Members, that TB treatment is being sold. Yes, if you are a member like myself and yourself that is on medical aid, you will go to a hospital, you will be given a treatment, you will go to pharmacy to buy. But ordinary people, impula zikajaca, ziyaya kwizibhedlele zikarhulumente, ziwafumana amayeza wokunyanga isifo sephepha. Kodwa ekubalulekileyo kokokuba bayaxelelwa into yokuba la mayeza kufuneka bawasele kangakanani, bayaxelelwa into yokuba kubalulekile into yokuba kufuneka betyile. Nutrition is one of the challenges in our country because of the high rate of unemployment. Also, where people are staying, the accommodation, in informal settlement, where we know very well that that also is a challenge. But what is important is that all of us here, starting from today, when we go out and go to our constituencies, it doesn't start in the constituency, it starts with your family, as you are going to go out and show that your family is screened so that you understand and you know what is to be done. And as the African National Congress, we are also pledging that we will go out and sign that pledge. But we want to stress it's not only about signing the pledge, but it is to lead by example in terms of the lifestyle, in terms of, because the lifestyle is also a challenge. People are consuming high amount of liquor, and because of that, they default treatment. They are defaulters, and at the end, they then become resistant. As the African National Congress, we support the pledge. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Junjwa. That concludes, honorable members, the party responses to the statement. I will now ask the Secretary to read the seventh order.
Consideration of budgetary review and recommendation report of Standing Committee on Finance.
I now recognize the Chief Whip of the Majority Party.
House Chair, I move that the report be adopted.
The motion, honorable members, is that the report be adopted.
Chairperson,
why are you on your feet, honorable members? Please sit. I've not even finished reading. What is happening? Honorable members, the motion. Can you sit, Honorable Ndlozi? No, you were standing just now. The motion is that the report be adopted. Are there any objections?
Yes. Honorable House Chairperson, the EFF requests the declaration as the #1 speaker. Give us a chance, man. Hey.
Honorable members.
Chairperson?
You want, okay?
Yeah, I think the EFF need to realize that size does count in politics.
I couldn't hear that. But anyway, I will leave it. Honorable members, I asked whether there's any objection. Only the EFF said they object. And they have also asked for a declaration. Thank you very much. Can you, honorable member, DA, come? Injal.
Honourable Chair, thank you for the opportunity. Honourable members, whilst the report that we have before us is not to be objected to in the strict sense of the word, it is incomplete. It is missing some very important aspects, and I will touch on only 3 of these. The first is the restructuring of the African Bank, which has not been dealt with and is not going as planned. On top of that, the Myburgh report needs to be released to the Standing Committee on Finance for its consideration. Madam Chair, most importantly, there's the low level of confidence in the National Treasury to be trusted as transparent, honest and fair when dealing with all taxpayers. This report does not deal decisively with insisting that the Finance Minister and SARS Commissioner be obliged to bring South Africans into their confidence by making all information about the rogue spy unit available to the public. Indeed, there needs to be a full declaration about the corrective action that is going to be taken to restore the public confidence that has been so shattered by the reports of illegal activities. Whilst the DA does not object to the contents of the report, it is the omissions that determine that the report cannot be supported. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Honorable Matthias. And maybe let me clarify, Honorable Matthias, and say it is true. The declaration, the first person who asks for declaration is allowed to speak first. And unfortunately, Honorable Mazambane was seated here, and I thought that I should just allow him to come. Thank you very much.
Thanks, House Chairperson. We would want to condemn the Minister of Treasury and the entire ANC for showing no regard whatsoever to the legitimate demands of university students by streamrolling the medium-term budget policy statement in the middle of a crisis which almost brought the university to a complete shutdown. What is shocking was the level of indifference, the selfishness,
Honorable
and
Matthias,
I don't care attitude of the ruling elite.
Honorable Matthias, will you please take your seat?
We are not discussing the medium-term budget policy statement. This is the budget report.
How is that a point of order?
Discussing that
How is that a point of order?
Honorable,
you are a senior ANC member. You should know a point of order.
Honorable Ndlozi, please. I did not allow you to speak.
This was through elevating
Honorable
narrow
Matthias,
bureaucratic.
Honorable Matthias, please take your seat. Honorable Ndlozi, you are not allowed to stand up without being recognized and start talking. Please don't do that. Continue, Honorable Matthias.
Madam Chair, my time is gone.
No, look at your time. It has been stopped. We know the
This was elevating narrow bureaucratic rules over showing human face, particularly because in the end, your budget said nothing about fees. ANC, you are ungodly. You have no shame. You go around saying fees have fallen. No, fees are still there, and you only froze them to create an impression that you are doing something when you are not. The EFF rejected adoption of the Standing Committee on Finance on the National Treasury. If the only program that has expenditure closely linked with target achieved is administration, and services delivery programs spend more than 95% of their budget, but target achieved is only 60%, then South Africa has a serious problem. What is even more worrying is that the program, which is supposed to ensure proper expenditure control through financial systems, spend the most money but achieve few targets. This is far beyond a matter of value for money as far as National Treasury budget is concerned. But this clearly shows that it must not be a surprise if all other departments' financial administration are in shambles. Even worse is the situation in local government. When one reads the Auditor General's reports on majority of government departments and state-owned entities, such as the Post Office and South Africa Airways, they paint a depressing picture. To go and suggest that the overall performance of the National Treasury is reasonable,
Thank you very much, Honorable Matthias.
The EFF rejects this report and will reject it until something is done for the benefit of the working class and the poor.
Thank you. Honorable Carter.
Thank you, Chairperson. For the committee to have had just 5 working days to process the annual report of the National Treasury, SARS and the Accounting Standards Board and the BRRR as a whole is certainly too little. COPE agrees with the committee that such limited time undermines the examination of financial performances of these entities. The lack of a research and content advisor created a further dimension of difficulty. The Congress of the People agrees that the chairperson engages with the House chairperson for oversight in ICT and other office bearers in the Speaker's office to address this issue. After going through all of the reports of all the committees, one is compelled to ask why no action is taken by government against those who are routinely flouting the PFMA and other procurement policies. Likewise, what action will the Minister take in respect of the National Treasury spending 96% of its budget, but achieving only 63% of its targets? COPE urges government to introduce the whole-of-government accounts concept as pioneered in New Zealand. We need to see a government reporting not only on a department, but by department basis, but reporting annually on its total resources, inclusive of borrowed funds, and how it spent these resources specifically to improve the standard of living of its citizens. The Congress of the People agrees with the Committee for National Treasury to work with the Department of Public Works specifically and other relevant departments, generally to address the perennial problem of effective asset management. It is shocking that this problem remains unresolved. In fact, it is a indictment on government. We reserve our position on this report, which is also, as far as our research is concerned, incomplete. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Honorable Nkomo.
Thank you. As the Minister alluded in his foreword to the MTBPS, the state of the world economy has greatly constrained domestic growth and led to the downward revision of the growth forecast in many developing countries. In South Africa, this has been amplified by the following structural factors: the energy crisis, weak business confidence, and low household demand. This is the micro-environment in which we find ourselves, and this largely sets the parameters and narrow confines within which the Minister of Finance and Treasury has to navigate optimum value fiscal spend. Boosting economic growth and transformation of our society through protected spending on social and economic programs, the stabilization of debt as well as value for money spending must continue to guide policy on progressive fiscal management. With our debt gap widening through the recent and various shocks to our exchange rate brought about by certain internal socio-economic instabilities, it is vital that steps be taken to restore such instability in order to reduce the knock-on effect and opportunity costs of fiscal monies having to be used for debt financing instead of being channeled into growth promotion avenues. It is paramount that economic growth be bolstered so that our National Development Plan goals may be realized. This will be done through alleviation structural constraints and a more determined focus on the creation of jobs. The IFP supports this report. I thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Kobisa.
House Chairperson, honorable members, thank you. The BRRR of the Standing Committee on Finance on the National Treasury is by its own definition incomplete. The National Treasury is reported to have spent 12.4 billion or 96.0% of its finance appropriation of 12.9 billion for the 2014-2015 financial year and achieved 144 or 63.0% of the 224 targets planned for the 2014-2015 year. We acknowledge that this does represent an increase of 8.6% in actual expenditure compared to the 11.4 billion spent in 2013-2014 financial year. And we do note that this is a marginal improvement of 1.3% in the targets achieved when compared to the overall 63.0% achieved in 2012-2013. We do, however, not believe that 63% is a satisfactory performance rate. National Treasury should be leading by example, and we should be demanding a much higher performance rate. In a country like ours that has high unemployment rate, especially among young people, Treasury should be leading by an example. The National Treasury furthermore received an unqualified audit opinion with findings for the 2014-2015 financial year, which is the same as in the previous 3 years. And the Auditor General highlighted several findings in terms of matters of emphasis, such as predetermined objectives, non-compliance with legislation, internal controls and investigations underway, which we encourage the Treasurer to pay attention to. We acknowledge the continued good performance of SARS as reflected in the report, and note the improved service delivery performance of the Financial and Fiscal Commission.
Thank you very
The
much.
National Freedom Party is, however, concerned about the discipline of the overall control environment for the land bank as requiring improvement. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very
The
much.
NFP reluctantly supports this budget.
Honorable Nkwankwa.
Thank you very much, House Chair. Kukala into ezifana sizibale into okuba le nto yoba uTreasury akwazi uspenda 96% yebudget abe achieve only 63% ye-targets. Ifaka ingxaki kuba kaloku ngabona bangumzekelo, especially when it comes to government departments kwezinto ezidibenise nemali. Ithetha ukuthi sifuneka siqwalasele ngakumbi thina siyi-community whether or not siyafumana i-value for money singabantu be-service delivery and so far as that is concerned. The other issue about ebalulekileyo, I remember during the deliberations, the committee, we emphasized the point that to SARS, rather, the National Treasury should continue as supporter, even more support to municipalities. Nezinye departments of Mansuti, in terms of their finances, ziyaqhwalela. Because just need esasakhono bangenaso ukuze bakwazi improve indlela abamanage ngayo finances. That's important. The other issue which concerns us a great deal is that it seems SARS in particular, uyaqhubeka ukuyenza lula for people who can afford. It's almost like the legal system, the justice system, where onemali uyakwazi ukuthi akwazi ukuthi awuthenga umthetho. But when it comes to SARS, that abantu abanayo imali bayakwazi ukuthi ba-afford imali yokulungisela ukuthi bathenge abantu abazakwenzela ukuthi tax avoidance ibe lula kubo. Whereas of months ukuthi kwabantu bahluphekileyo basithi singathathi intweni, they are extremely strict. But the business community in particular gets away with a lot of avoidance tax, which is legal, is not illegal currently, but erode tax base in any event. Sifuna uphinde sithi the issue apha ehamba nokuthi the restructuring of the African Development Bank. We're hoping ukuthi over the next few months kuzaba khona iinkcukacha ezibambekayo ukuze nathi sikwazi uyiscrutinize siyijonge ngendlela eyithi ihamba njani. Le nto yele rogue units, the spy units akwa-SARS, asifuna uphosisa siza kuyiqwalasela and bafuneka sifake induku ukuze nisebenze ngendlela. We support the BRRR report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. ANC.
Chairperson, comrades, colleagues, yes to the DA, no problem. Restructuring of the African Bank, the Myberg report, if Mr. Lees is listening at all, we've agreed to that. There's no reason why the DA didn't raise it, would have put it in the report. So can the Whippery sort them out? We would have done it, they didn't do their job. All right, secondly, I want to make this clear. On the rogue unit, we've covered this thing ad nauseum, which is to say that basically the intelligence issues fall under the Intelligence Committee. And we've agreed on the division of labor, the intelligence issues fall under them. And in fact, the issues that deal with productivity and outcomes following the ructions within SARS, we deal with. And in fact, interestingly, despite the ructions, despite the divisions, 9.3% more than the previous year and over 7.3 billion rands beyond target. So it did achieve it. On the issue of the EFF, there's a difference, Mr. Matthias, the honourable member, between the medium-term budget policy statement and the BRRR. Today is Tuesday, not Wednesday. We deal with that tomorrow. This issue never arose in the BRRR. So you've been here 15 months. Surely you know the difference, right? You can deal with the issue next sitting tomorrow, where the matter will be discussed.
Madam Chair.
On the issue of appropriations.
Karim,
Arises on a point
please
of order.
sit. Point of order. Honorable Matthias.
I want to know if it's parliamentary for Honourable Eunice Karim to wear the same pair of shoes.
Please sit down. That is not a point of order. Sit down. Please sit. Continue, Honorable Karim.
I would like to hear what you're saying, but you've been ruled out. Okay. So basically, this matter, moreover, is more about appropriations and finance, EFF. And the targets. Yes, we agree on this point, if it's a point
Honorable Ndlozi.
Honorable House Chairperson, you must give an instruction at least that the mic must be switched off. These bureaucrats must not decide. Wabo, you see, you have not given an instruction.
That is not a point of order. Please
But
sit
you
down.
must decide first. You must be given the opportunity to decide first. Bureaucrats must not run us here.
Honorable Ndlozi, will you please take your seat? Continue, Honorable.
On the discrepancy between the use of money and targets, the committee has agreed every quarterly report will be looking at that matter. And in fact, on the matter of 5 days cope, we entirely agree. What we want to say, though, is that all the problems that we have around economic growth and job creation cannot be reduced to national treasury. It's for government as a whole, it's for civil society, business, labor, this parliament, all of us to work together, despite our differences, on ensuring economic growth, job creation, and reducing poverty. So in fact, many of the issues raised are covered in some form or another.
Thank you very much.
Report,
Your
if they're
time
not covered
has
in this, we support this report, obviously. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I
All the
want
mics are not
to...
working now.
Honorable members, I now want to put the question again. Those in favor of the report being adopted, say aye. Those against, say no. Thank you very much.
Madam.
Oh,
Madam,
he stood first. He stood first.
House Chairperson. House Chairperson. The raised House Chairperson.
Okay.
Can you please accord us human decency? Which the racist.
On what point of order
I
are you
rise
standing?
on a point of order for you to continuously switching off the mics. Can you please?
I will do
Can
that.
you please listen to me?
I know. I want.
Can you please listen to me?
No. Honorable members, now listen. Can you please both take your seats? Can you please both take your seats? Honorable members, when you rise on a point of order, it is on the point of procedure. You don't just rise and start debating or telling the table what to do, because we know exactly what should be done. I can't listen to a debate raised in pretense of a point of order. That is why I will keep on switching the mic, because you know what is supposed to happen and you are not doing it. So please, I beg you, please follow the procedures and the rules of this House. Honorable Ndlozi.
Thank you. You know, Chairperson, why the House always falls under your guide is because you don't listen.
I'm not going to listen to that
That
either.
is the problem. That is the problem
I'm
with
not going
you.
to listen to that either. That is
Because
not
it's
a
the
point
truth.
of... No,
Because
no, no.
it's the truth.
Honorable
Because
member,
it's the truth.
please sit down.
You are impatient.
No.
I think you must go to primary school or something. Go be a principal at a kindergarten or something. We always run into chaos only under your precision.
Honorable Ndlozi, are you aware that you are disruptive now?
No,
you are. Because
you are disruptive.
No, Honorable Ndlozi, you cannot do as you wish in this House. We have got,
also cannot do as you wish.
Rules
You
in
also
this
cannot
House.
do as you wish.
Honorable, there was somebody standing. Honorable Steenhuisen.
Yeah.
Also can't do as you wish. Who are you?
Thank you very much, Madam House Chair. Our whippery is fine. Perhaps the ANC's whippery could get the members in the House to pass your legislation, Honourable Karim. I'll speak to them rather than to me. The Democratic Alliance would like to record our objection to the report.
What is it? Can you say that again?
Because you're not listening. This is the reason.
I said to you that the Honourable Karim should perhaps give advice to the ANC whippery.
No. What is your why are you standing? Don't talk about Honorable Karim. He's not here.
I'm objecting to the report as per the rules of Parliament.
Okay, thank you very much. Your objection is noted. Thank you. Honorable Matias.
I rise to register the objection of the economic freedom. However, Madam Chair.
Noted.
However, Madam Chair.
Honorable members, the report has been cordially agreed to, and the objection of the EFF and the DA will be noted. Thank you very much. We now continue, and I will now ask the Secretary to read the 8th order, the last item on the order paper.
Subject for discussion, Mr. T. Makundu, empowerment of young people in our country.
The last item on the order paper, Honorable Makondo.
Thanks very much, Honorable Chairperson. This debate takes place just a few days after the ANC celebrated the life and times of Reginald Oliver Tambo, who was the selfless fighter for justice, freedom, human rights, and equality. South Africans, as a nation, will always be indebted to him for being brave and led the ANC at the most difficult times of our national liberation struggle. When Verwoerd's apartheid policies were entrenched, our people in township, especially young people, bear the brunt of this system. Hence, the youth of 1976, as led by the progressive forces of the ANC, undermined the inhuman laws of apartheid as designed by Verwoerd. There is relatively similarities between the 1976 generations and the 2015 generation. The 2015 generation are tired of systematic exclusion from universities by universities to continue the apartheid patterns, and indeed, fees must fall. University must take responsibility for their insensitive action. The youth chairperson can be a creative force, a dynamic source of innovation. They have undoubtedly, throughout history, changed political system. However, youth also face poverty, barrier to education, multiple forms of discrimination, unemployment, which is increasingly at an alarming rate. The youth chairperson is an important and a special component of society in driving their social change. And if their needs are slowly addressed, they will be impatient. Honorable members, let me draw your attention on youth development progress thus far, which we, as the ANC, have done. ANC has done the following in restoring the loss of identity of our youth towards nation building and social cohesion. The democratic victory of 1994 indeed was a concrete step towards restoration of nation building, but acknowledge that there are many challenges affecting the youth. And youth development has happened uncoordinated manner that has to come to an end. Post-1994, the Progressive Youth Alliance, under the leadership of the ANC, engaged in a constructive debate to define a progressive path towards an integrated youth development approach. In its Congress, the ANC Youth League has resolved that there is a need to institutionalize youth development in the country, a process that culminated to the establishment of National Youth Commission, which President Mandela launched in 1996, a first of its kind after more than 300 years of youth condemnation. This is what President Nelson Mandela said, I quote, "Youth are the value position of our nation. Without them, there can be no future. Their needs are immense and urgent. They are a center of reconstruction and development," close quote. The immediate task of Youth Commission was to coordinate youth development initiatives, aiming at empowering the youth of our country. The pillar and the centrality to its mandate was to lobby and advocate for mainstreaming of youth development across different stakeholders, including government and private sector. The National Youth Commission opened a new chapter in the evolution of youth development in this country, which gave rise to the birth of South African National Youth Council and the establishment of Msobomvu Youth Fund, in its endeavor to mainstream youth development in the country for the first time. South Africa has adopted a youth development framework in 2002, a policy which gave birth to a government's National Youth Service Program, A national youth service program aimed at providing a long-term and effective ways of reconstructing South African society by developing abilities of young people through service and learning. Its main objective was to inculcate a culture of service by supporting the youth to participate constructively in nation building and social cohesion, creating an understanding in young people of their role in promoting civic awareness, patriotism, and development. Acknowledging, Chairperson, that young people indeed needed skills and ability to enable them to make transition to adulthood, most importantly, to improve youth employability through work experience in a form of learnership and internship and skills development by the different sitters, and the NYS has done very well towards bringing the dignity of South African youth. Honorable members, on skills development and education, a lot has been done. Living up to the commitment of the Freedom Charter, the doors of learning shall be open for all, the ANC-led government has opened up opportunities for our young people from an early child development to an adulthood. It is only this government that has banned buying of learning materials by learners and introduced a no-fee schools from grade R to grade 12. It is only the ANC-led government that today is replacing the Bantustan concept of education, and we are moving towards a paperless classroom in some part of our country. It is only the ANC-led government that has broadened access to higher education by providing bursaries and financial aid to poor students, and opening NSFAS to TVET colleges, and building 2 more universities within the period of 20 years of our democracy. In 2006, the National Youth Commission convened a youth convention, a directive from the ANC Youth League to review youth development in the country. The convention emerged with an integrated youth development strategy to accelerate a single integrated youth development, which gave birth to the establishment of the NYDA in 2008. The adoption of the National Youth Policy by government in 2008, as well as the policy document that guides youth development trajectory in our country. We therefore call on all stakeholders to support the NYP 2020 and implement this policy because it is in line with the NDP and Vision 2030. Government, labor and youth sector, and business through NEDLEC have signed a youth employment accord. The youth employment accord. Thanks very much, Chairperson.
Ngitocela lilunga lehloniphekile uMaynard tokhuluma ngesiZulu namhlanje.
Chairperson, I was privileged to attend the inaugural address of former President Nelson Mandela in this Parliament. He recognized on that day, and I quote, "The youth of our country are the valued possession of the nation. Without them, there can be no future. Their needs are immense and urgent." The Fees Must Fall campaign reminds us that 21 years later, the youth's needs remain immense and urgent. Yet the Minister of Education and Training, Dr. Bladen Zamande, does not seem to understand the immense and urgent needs of students, especially poor students who cannot afford to pay their fees. The 2.7 billion rand shortfall arising from the 0% fees increase must be squeezed out of taxpayers and muscled out of the private sector, all to avoid ministerial belt-tightening. And that is because the needs of ministers are more important than the needs of poor students who cannot pay their fees. the needs of the Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, who plans to spend 720 million rand on foreign missions, are more important than the needs of poor students who cannot pay their fees. The needs of the Minister of Health, who plans to spend 1.25 million on new ministerial vehicles, are greater than the needs of poor students who cannot afford to pay their fees. The needs of the Minister of Police, who plans to spend 69.7 million on bodyguards, are greater than the needs of poor students who cannot afford to pay their fees. The needs of the Minister of Human Settlements, who plans to spend 245,000 on her new ministerial office, are greater than the needs of poor students who cannot afford to pay their fees. We cannot go on like this. We have to act now. We have to put students first. And that is why I'm appealing to the Minister of International Relations and Cooperation to put the needs of students first and sacrifice spending more money on foreign missions. And I'm appealing to the Minister of Health to put students first and sacrifice spending more money on ministerial cars. And I'm appealing to the Minister of Police to put the needs of students first and sacrifice spending on money on bodyguards. And I'm appealing to the Minister of Human Settlements to put the needs of students first and sacrifice spending more money on ministerial officers. We can find the money, but only if we put students first. And we have to do this because, as the former President Nelson Mandela reminded us 21 years ago, their needs are immense and their needs are urgent. I thank you.
Honorable Ndlozi.
We take this opportunity to declare 2015 the year of radical and militant youth activism, from the statues must fall to the fees must fall movement. We salute these gallant fighters and affirm their determination, resilience and unity which brought the ANC government kicking and screaming in that soprano voice of Brablade Nzimande to agree on 0% fee increment in 2016. But these fighters did not stop there. They also raised the bar higher, and that 0% only means fees have been frozen for a year. That the most sustainable solution is when fees fall.
Members, can
is when fees have fallen.
Our voice and not shout.
For the attainment of free education, quality education for all. The ANC's motion that we sit here today and debate youth empowerment reflects their slow pace in understanding the revolutionary time clock of social change. The fees must fall movement is the answer to youth empowerment, because there is no better empowerment you can give to young people than quality education. Everything else you give will not be sustainable if it is not accompanied by quality education. Quality education is the foundation of any conception of human freedom. If you give me the right to life, why let me live without education? If you give me the right to freedom of speech, what will I ever say if I'm not educated? I will suffer the humiliation of not being able to read numbers in front of the entire nation. This is why education must be free, and it must be free for all. This is the greatest human demand of all time, without which both our political freedoms and economic freedoms to come are at risk. When people say we want to be educated, it is evil to send them to loan sharks like EduLoan, to send police to assault them, to shoot them, to arrest them. They seek empowerment, a noble need, the need to be educated. The idea of fees must fall could indeed be interpreted in the three words of Dr. King Jr. when he said, all here and now. The students are not saying they want part of the fees should fall. Like increment, they are saying all fees must fall. They are saying fees must fall right here in South Africa. Do not refer them to another country. They want fees to fall in UCT, VETS, Unilim, Univen, UKZN. Students do not want fees to fall in 20 years. Do not tell them about about Vision 2020 or some NDP Vision 2030. They want fees to fall, and they want fees to fall right here, right now. Now, many of you have been saying this demand is unreasonable and have had the audacity to question the students as to where the money will come from. Well, in the same way you have planned to spend 1 trillion on nuclear build, is the same way you should plan on free quality education. The fees must fall historic demand is an absolutely quintessential argument, superior both in its ethical prose and logical power. It is the critique of the entire conception of youth in government policy. Above all, it critiques the idea of the commodification of schooling. The fees must fall, critique says, and NFSAS must fall. NFSAS must not even, NFSAS has not changed the 122,000 household income for those who must qualify for the loan. The reality is, even if I had 200,000, I could still not afford, and if I could not still afford education. NFSAS is therefore trapped in the logic that fees must fall is fighting against, and that has to do with education being a commodity. It affirms it. No one must take a loan from anybody to be educated. All academically deserving young people must have free access to universities. In addition, if you took what we have been telling you since we got here in Parliament about illicit financial flows, you would have already recovered lots of money to fund education. Nigeria today is recovering 72 billion rands from one company because they listened. In South Africa, an estimate of 385 billion can be recovered annually by going hard on all who engage in profit shifting.
Is up.
Only education is the real empowerment on our people. Free quality education now. Thank you very much.
Honorable House Chairperson, youth development is a human right and youth rights are human rights. The IFP believes it is the responsibility of a democratic government to empower the youth generation to shape tomorrow. Today should really not be about rhetoric as we have heard, as we have been down this road of debates many times before. The youth of South Africa are simply no longer interested in statements of intent or fancy plans. This debate should be about a report back of tangible results to the youth of South Africa from the ANC. But we all know that when it comes to youth development, they have very little to report on. Unemployment remains very high, now standing at a staggering 25%. And under President Zuma, the situation has gone from bad to worse and is now at its worst. The economy is on its knees. The promises of a better life for all have come to naught. Every promise has been a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. President Motsoaledi is speaking at the IFP 40th anniversary rally in Soweto over the past weekend, correctly captured the situation of South Africa, and I quote when he said, "The present fight for free education is born out of the need for young South Africans to secure their future in a very uncertain economic climate. Our youth are asking for the opportunity to create their own future. Access to education cannot be barred to those with limited resources. We are shooting ourselves in the foot if we make education a preserve of the few. For we need skilled, empowered, educated citizens to build our economy if we are to get through this time of economic crisis. We need the contribution of every South African, and that contribution must be optimized," I close quote. In 1994, the ANC promised South Africans free education. And in 2015, the electorate has come out to demand what was promised to them. It is time to deliver. The fees must fall. The 0% fee increment in 2016 does not address the real issues and does not solve the problem, because education, whilst being a constitutional right, it has become a commercialized commodity that the majority of our people cannot afford. The zero free increment was a knee-jerk reaction without a real plan of where the money would come from. Free education must first and foremost benefit the poor, whose lives on a daily basis is punctuated by struggle and inequality. Our democratic rights are not for sale to be sold to those with deep pockets, leaving the poor struggling and vulnerable, languishing in socio-economic conditions and a wilderness without hope and progress in life, and unable to contribute to South Africa's economic growth and development simply because they don't have the money to buy education. So if you really want to come and tell us about the empowerment of young people, maybe start with better access to healthcare and education, create jobs, and understand that NSFAS has collapsed because of corruption and no longer serves its intended purposes.
Thank
and
you,
no longer
Honourable
gives the money
Member.
to the people
Your time is up.
intended recipients. I thank you.
Honourable Mncwabe.
Ngiyabonga Sihlalo ngibingelela indlu yonke. The recent Fees Must Fall protest, which made the foundations of our society tremble, is a clear signal which we can no longer ignore. Our youth are becoming increasingly dissatisfied with the lack of empowerment in the post-democratic era, and it is now a matter of time before this discontent will spill out in the streets as patience gives way to resentment. Swift and proactive action is called for if we are to avert a repeat of the Fees Must Fall protest on a scale not seen in our country since the height of apartheid oppression. This time it will be of no use to government to treat protest as a policing matter, and heavy-handed public order enforcement will catapult the country into unprecedented chaos. The National Freedom Party believes that we are standing at the edge of a political abyss in our country, but that there is still time to guide the new order which is coming as it must. Our youth have waited long enough now, and their empowerment should be escalated to the highest government priority without delay. The policy guidelines of the National Freedom Party on youth and development is clear and consistent. We believe that youth empowerment through skills development is the key to unlock the potential of future generations today. Skills once acquired will equip our youth to face the future with confidence and with a realistic chance of finding employment or to embrace entrepreneurship. The National Freedom Party thus calls on the government to take all steps necessary to achieve free basic and further education for all deserving young South Africans. By investing in education, we invest in our future. The NFP also believes that at least 50% of black industrialists which the government seeks to empower must be young people, and in particular those from historically disadvantaged communities. By including youth in the generational mix in this sector, young people will have identifiable role models which will serve as inspiration and encourage them to develop entrepreneurial skills. Above all, Sihlalo, we need to give our youth hope. We need to give them honest hope, not empty promises. Actions speak louder than words, and the ball is now in government's court. The NFP therefore urges government to sit down and for once listen to the youth seriously, engage with them and find a common solution to the lack of empowerment which is making our young people restless. The youth is our future. Let us take them seriously as equal citizens of the country.
Member,
for it is they who will inherit the society we shape today. Ngiyabonga Sihlalo.
Kubonge mine. Honourable Matsimbi.
Kia leboga modulasetulo maloko a tlhomphegileng amogelang madume kgotsong. The quality of life for a black person under the colonial apartheid regime was poor and inferior. Blacks were grouped into homelands that were underdeveloped and dependent on the apartheid regime for survival. These homelands were characterized by challenges such as huge backlogs on basic services like quality clean water, sanitation, health, and education. The impact of this is still felt today and characterizes the lives of many poor black South Africans. The Freedom Charter, as adopted at the Congress of the People in Kliptown on the 26th June 1955, says, I quote, "The doors of learning and culture shall be opened," close quote. The clause further says, the government shall discover, develop, and encourage national talent for the enhancement of our cultural life. All the cultural treasures of mankind shall be open to all. by free exchange of books, ideas, and contact with other land. The aim of education shall be to teach the youth to love their people, their culture, to honor human brotherhood, liberty, and peace. Since the formation of the ANC Youth League in 1944, followed by the adoption of Freedom Charter, the ANC has consciously strived to nurture and guide young people to love themselves, their people, their culture, which includes respect, discipline, and humility, not the rude meanness that we lately experience. As we move the country forward, busy correcting the evils and poor legacy left by the apartheid regime, departments are mandated to have youth developmental programs. These developmental programs are in the form of bursaries, learnerships, and internships. As much as we are told that for 21 years, there's been no improvement in our country's educational system, that's pure fallacy. The country has improved immensely. Honorable Chair, allow me to take this House through the milestone achieved thus far by the democratic government. On early childhood development, the government supports a child from birth. Child are born free, they don't pay any medical expense. They get the medication with their parents for free. They get the birth certificate for free, and they proceed to receive the social grant courtesy of our government. They proceed to enter the early childhood level of education, and afterwards, the child is ready for primary education until grade 7. They then continue to receive free education until grade 12. That's courtesy of our government. Critical in the strengthening of coordination of joint action between both basic and higher education with student formations, parliament, and national democratic forces, generally to build an effective movement for education transformation. Through the process of struggle and progress, the ANC had to reconstruct the education system in order to create an education system that is of quality and accessible to all. An education system underpinned by policy objectives of the ANC, and significantly the call by Freedom Charter that the doors of learning and culture shall be open. Our achievement on basic education. The budget allocated to the education sector, basic and higher, increases annually to reaffirm the ANC government and that the ANC's government's undertaking to affirm education as an apex priority. This is evident in the programs prioritized by the Department of Basic Education, the Mathematics, Science and Technology grant, which by increasing the number of learners taking math and science and technology subjects. Improving the success rate in the subjects and improving teachers' capabilities in teaching these 3 gateway subjects will reinforce the action plan and national plan. The development and educator support has been prioritized. This is seen through the 3.994 billion through Funza Lushaka bursaries over the medium-term expenditure framework. This is to ensure that every learner in every classroom is taught for the required number of hours by a qualified and competent educator. Our achievement on higher education. The intake of students for post-school education will be massively expanded over the next 5 years, with the aim of enrolling the majority of youth aged 18 to 23. At least 60% of jobs in new infrastructure projects have been set aside for young people. This will be combined with improved training by FET's colleges to ensure that there are enough young people with necessary skills. Large industrial projects include work and training opportunities for artisans on a large scale. FET colleges are providing industries with requisite artisan skills. On higher education, alternative avenues have been established to develop skills. This includes TVET colleges, artisans, training programs that are funded by bursaries, SETAs and the National Skills Fund. This has led to artisans successfully completing their trade test. SETAs are intervening in communities in dire straits by skilling young people to enable young people to be eligible for employment. The historically disadvantaged institutions are being prioritized for infrastructure, spending in all areas but mostly student housing and historic backlogs. An HDI development fund has also been introduced to help these universities fund initiatives that can improve their financial sustainability and academic standing. Major reviews of the National Student Financial Aid Scheme have taken place and should be seen in the context of a new plan on implementation of free tertiary education to the poor, including the provision for student accommodation, all in the broader context of the funding of universities. In 2013-2014, a total number of 562 young people entered into learning programs, who many of them are now in employment. A further 244,069 young people will be trained over next year through the CETAs. The National Senior Certificate for Adult was registered to address the problem of unemployed and unskilled youth. The NSFAS continues to provide loans and bursaries, approximately 50 billion since 1994, to approximately 1.5 million students in South Africa. This amounts to approximately. This has necessitated an increase in allocation of NSFAS on an annual basis. The budget is further increased by recovered and donor allocations, which increased the total budget of NSFAS to 9.5 million. We are a responsive government and we will continue to press forward in the name of empowering our future leaders. As said by the then President O.R. Tambo, I quote, "A nation that does not care for its youth has no future and does not deserve one." I-ANC ibhizi njani shem, #Sikulento. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Kwangwa.
Ndiyabulela kakhulu mhlali ngaphambili namalungu endlu yosomthetho abekekileyo.
Order, honorable members, can we allow the member on the podium to be heard?
Yabona mna ndibuxakwa kule veki ne-United Democratic Movement. Mzukulwana ndini kaDalbunga. Abafundi bazile apha kule veki pheleyo. Bathi sifuna uthetha nani about empowerment. Bathi sifuna uthetha nani about some of the binding constraints that make it impossible for us to access higher education. Nisenenza ntoni abangomba. Namhlanje ngoku isazela sivukile kuba nithi kaloku abantwana bethu befanele sibamamele. Nithi must debate youth empowerment. Ndiyayiqonda ke into yoba the focus currently is on higher education. But uba sithetha inyaniso emsulwa uba uye ezilalini ndikhe ndatyelela ilali ndihambe ndisiya kwizikolo eziqhwalelayo zamabanga phantsi. Ndafika phayana kuma-Eliodale ufumanisa izikolo ezifana neendaba ezulu, isarhili, igotyibeni nezinye. Nakwezinye ii-provinces ufumanisa abantwana bahlala eziteneni kuba khona edesika. Abantwana babhalela emadolweni kuba imaterial ayikho. Now the question endiyibuzayo into yoba noba ungayivulela kangakanani access to higher education, but if basic education still has a lot of challenges, it means ngoku uzawukhupha abantwana abasuka kwi-basic education abangakulungelanga kwakuba kuloo higher education ezi-universities. Iphinde ibe yingxaki. Ufumanisa ukuthi kwakwezi universities ezi ezinocalucalulo xa zive zithanda. Uba uthetha esi siXhosa le English yethu ingathi iXhosa English, uvele ubonwe phaa kuthiwe yimemva kuzawukhangelwa ukhumshwa ngamarhanana. Angene ngaphakathi sibe phofu thina sibafundisa abantwana phezu ezilalini kuba lo xa ehlele esiteneni xa utishala kuzawufuneka banqumle amanzi ukubheka esikolweni. Ngenye iweekend ngenye iveki bendipha babedophola ibhlukhwe. Ootishala kuyabhalwa abafundi bangaphesheya abaqubhile abafundi banganenotishala bona bakwazi uya esikolweni. Zii-challenges ezifeyisiwe ngabantwana bethu abamnyama azo. The worst part of it is when you go there and you find that abantwana bethu have to perform their ablutions in public. Bazithumela bala phaa endle baphinde kufuneke baze kwalapha esikolweni. Ithetha ukuthi kwezi challenges zininzi kwi-basic education kufuneka sizoyile. Singaveli nje sigquma umbona ngamakhasi sicinga ukuthi xa bekwazile ungena e-university yonke into iphelela ayiphelelanga. So hashtag le mfundo iyashota. I-NSFAS I-NFSAS isene-problem enkulu ufumanisa ukuthi urhwaphilizo lubhokile phana kufumana nabantwana babantu abanemali imali ze bathi aba basezilalini ufumanisa bafumana namali siphinde sithi education niyaqhuba nyhani nifundisana nedwa. Thank you so much.
Enkosi lungehloniphekile. Ingxaki ke andikwazi ukumtolika lo hashtag. Kusazawufuneka ndifune obabusithi Msimanga ukuthi mhlambe sesiphi isizulu esingasenza okanye ulwimi olutsha esizawubiza ngayo lo hashtag. Sibulele ke lungehloniphekile Honorable Groenewald.
Achtbare voorzitter, I want to refer to the honourable member from the ANC. He referred to apartheid. Now let it be very clear. I don't want to go back to apartheid. But it is very surprisingly that if we talk about that time, that the president of Zimbabwe, President Mugabe, that he obtained his degree at the University of Fort Hare in the Eastern Cape. How is it then that the honourable member, Dr. Buthelezi, obtained his PhD at the University of Cape Town? So don't blame everything on apartheid, because it seems that's the only thing you can do when you cannot solve the problem. En dit is die kern van die probleem, achtbare voorzitter. Dat die ANC kom staan hierso en wil eintlik spog oor wat se geleenthede en bemagtiging hulle vir die jeug wil doen.
Order, honourable members. Can we please allow the member on the podium to finish his statement?
Ek moet sê as ek moet harder praat, achtbare voorsitter, ek kan harder praat as ek moet. Die werklikheid is, die ANC regering bevorder niks anders as rasisme nie. U spog hierso oor beurse wat beskikbaar gestel word aan die jeug van Suid-Afrika om hulle te bemagtig. Maar die werklikheid is, as die ANC oor jeug praat, dan dink hulle net aan swart jeug.
Order, Chair. Order, Chair. Yeah.
What is the point of order, honourable member?
The point of order, Chair, I want to check whether Honourable Groenewald can take a question as the architect of apartheid.
Can you please wait to hear whether the member can take a question or not?
Achtbare voorsitter, ek vat net intelligente vrae. So die achtbare lid kan nie intelligente vraag vra nie. Ek neem geen vrae nie.
Can you take a seat, honourable member? Can you please take a seat?
Dankie, voorsitter. Voorsitter, as ons gaan kyk oor bemagtiging van die jeug, moet ons begin by die begin van die probleem. En die begin van die probleem begin op basiese onderwysvlak. Hoe is dit moontlik dat die achtbare minister van basiese onderwys nou al begin voorspraak maak om te sê dat sy is bietjie bekommerd oor die uitslae van matrikulante, want dit gaan nou die eerste keer wees dat graad 12 leerlinge wat vir 2 keer in graad 11 gedryp het, net eenvoudig deurgesit is om 'n matriekeksamen te kan skryf. Dit is mos niks anders as die verlaging van standaarde nie. En ek wil vandag vir u sê, indien u standaarde verlaag op basiese onderrig, dan bemagtig u nie die jeug nie, u ontmagtig hulle. En ek wil vir u sê, u ontmagtig die wit jeug, want u diskrimineer teen hulle as gevolg van regstellende aksie. As u die jeug werklik wil bemagtig, word dan werklik kleurblind. Moenie dat 'n wit student hoër vereistes moet aan voldoen en 'n hoër standaard moet aan voldoen om by 'n universiteit toegelaat te word nie. Moenie toelaat dat 'n wit student, as hy of sy aansoek doen vir 'n studiebeurs, moet sê, nee, maar jammer, jy kan dit nie kry nie, want jy is wit. Achtbare voorsitter, kinders wat in 1994 gebore is en wat wit is vandag 21 jaar oud. Hoe lang wil u teen hulle diskrimineer? U bemagtig nie, u ontmagtig. Ek dank.
Honourable Madisha. Order. Honourable members, I know sometimes interventions can be very heated, but can we please allow those who are on the podium to also be heard? Honourable Madisha.
The transition from education into the labour market has become more difficult for the South African youth. Without doubt, the present generation of the young people has been hit very hard by the economic crisis.
The European Commission report indicates that in Europe, 1 out of 5 young job seekers under 25 cannot find work. In South Africa, it is 1 in 7. Many young people in Europe, as well as in South Africa, believe that their concerns are not taken up by politicians and they feel marginalized and excluded from economic social life. Social tensions are rising everywhere. It is imperative that young people acquire the skills they need for today's and tomorrow's labor market. They must also have social, civic, and intercultural competencies, as well as strong capacity for critical thinking. We must pay particular attention to the needs of disadvantaged youth. There are 2 things that we will request President Zuma to do. Number 1, you say it has been spoken about this thing of saying we don't have enough money for the youth, for our children at the universities. And yet we need about 2.2 billion rand. But where is this money? Very many the ministers and the deputy ministers who are there, you talk about 73 people. We want to emphasize the biggest country in the world. You talk about China, you talk about around 18 ministers saving 1.2 billion people. So that's the first thing that we say Zuma president has got to look into. Secondly, we call on him to do that which the working class requested President Mandela to do in 1998. Then we requested President Mandela to call government, business, and labor together so that we could come up with something that could take us forward. And the workers, of course, were able to contribute 89 million rand. I mean, I know I was chairperson of that for 11 years.
Honorable
and indeed,
Makisha,
that has been able to create more than 100,000 jobs. Please do what is correct. Thank you.
Honorable Dudley.
Thank you, Chair. Okay. A person's education and subsequent employment deeply affects their self-esteem, and recent attention brought to not only those who drop out, but those graduates in South Africa who struggle through and leave university not competent within a business environment, and this is telling. Melo Magolego, writing in the Mail and Guardian, has also drawn attention to students lacking actual hands-on experience and not having anyone guiding them through the potential potholes. Now, most students in South Africa are young people for whom English is not their home or primary language, and they arrive at varsity or college unaware of the requirements of the study culture of tertiary education. So it's not surprising that the average time taken in achieving a BA today is 5 to 6 years for a 3-year course. Now, this translates into climbing costs for students and educational institutes for each additional year. Even in the case of degrees like engineering, it is as bad, if not worse, with even higher costs. Now, in the opinion of some experts in education analysis and consultation, we need to help the bulk of students to pass in the correct amount of time. And the root cause of extended degrees, we are told, is that even if students obtain an entrance pass into university, their level of academic literacy and mathematical thinking is not sufficient to enable them to cope with the higher level knowledge and skills that university programs demand. The proposed solution is a foundational bridging year. Students need a preparation year to remediate gaps and enhance their English and maths knowledge and skills and critical thinking before they tackle all first-year courses. This need is true of students at TVET colleges as much as universities. In recent years, as the enrollment of TVET colleges has hugely expanded, so have dropout rates increased and graduation rates decreased, so much waste and despondency. It is not enough to just think about access, as Minister Nzimande has, without considering how costs can be most effectively reduced through increasing throughput and graduation rates. A focus on improving student readiness for success in post-school education is critical to ensure fewer dropouts and more graduates sooner, especially in scarce skills areas. Bridging programs were common at universities and technikons in the 1980s, usually funded by corporations, which provided bursaries to students in exchange for a number of years of work in their businesses. They had realized that the students needed this year to prepare them properly for successful study. Important lessons were learned from these programs and they need to be re-examined. A number of models were used by common components were year-long English and maths and critical thinking courses, as well as other study skills and support that's needed. The ACDP urges government to implement a bridging year across the board and would rapidly increase empowerment. Thank you.
Honorable Kasim.
Thank you, Chairperson. President Nelson Mandela had a dream to give power to the preamble of our Constitution through a commitment to improving the quality of life of all citizens and freeing the potential of each person. President Zuma's government has not honored this commitment. Madiba once said, "We are not yet free. We have merely achieved the freedom to be free." The fact is, the ANC government today is not free to empower the youth of our country. It remains shackled. Shackled by the need to defend a compromised president. Shackled by rampant corruption and waste. Shackled by the need to reward loyal but unskilled cadres with powerful jobs and bloated bureaucracies. Shackled by alliance partners who compromise basic education. Shackled by ideological differences. We will never be free so long as the circumstances of our birth, rather than our efforts and talent, determine our future success. The state of our education 21 years into our democracy is considered to be among the very worst and unequal in the world. Let me make this clear, Honorable Matsimbi. As you come here and boast about no-fee schools, the call of our people is not for free education. It is for free quality education. History will show that the failure to provide our youth with quality education will be our government's single biggest failure. Our youth are failed from the very early grades by teachers who can't teach them to read. By the time they need to use their reading skills to learn, they have a disadvantage that will never be erased. They are then expected to complete high school under teachers who can't get the basic rights. In fact, many of these teachers can't even pass the exams that they set. Add this to the threats of drugs and violence in getting to school, the lack of textbooks, desks, toilets, and we have an entire generation falling through the cracks. Only 55% of pupils who enter school end up writing a matric examination, with only 12% achieving a bachelor pass. Poor South Africans who beat the odds to access higher education and training are further excluded or set up to fail through an inefficient and grossly underfunded financial aid scheme. Honorable Makondo came up here at the start of this debate, and it was the biggest insult to the many young South Africans that are being set up to fail and excluded to first of all say that fees must fall, when actually the fee increases has been due to the underfunding of our universities by the ANC government. And furthermore, to go and praise the National Student Financial Aid Scheme, the PYA, CETAs, and the NYDA. What it shows and what it indicates is how out of touch this government is from the realities on the ground. Currently, as we speak, there are students at TVET colleges who are supposed to be getting travel allowances to attend class who don't receive these allowances. and therefore they cannot attend class and they are being set up to fail. There are students that have been made to pay entrance fees to TVET colleges. I wrote to Minister Nzimande about this. He responds and says, well, there's no students being made to pay these fees. What this shows is that until and unless this government understands and knows what is happening on the ground, it will never be able to deal with the issues affecting our people. The future of our generation is hanging by a thread. It demands that we abandon the ANC politics as usual. Youth empowerment, rather than nuclear empowerment, must become the central focus of this government. It requires an entire mindset change, youth opportunity, rather than cadre opportunity. We can salvage an entire generation if only our priorities are corrected. Fix basic education, fund our students and universities appropriately, improve our technical and vocational skills offering, prioritize internship and learnership opportunities, introduce a real youth wage subsidy and opportunity voucher scheme for those who want to start businesses, scrap redundant bureaucracies including the NYDA, and streamline government departments. In order to build a truly inclusive society, we must ensure that a child born in Soweto is not faced with greater challenges to success than a child born in Sandton. This is the vision of the Democratic Alliance for South Africa, and this is the vision that we need to be focused on. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much. Honorable Chairperson. Order. Honorable Kacha, what is the point of order?
Chairperson, I didn't want to interrupt any of his speakers, but I'm just raising on a point of clarity. Where is the ministers today? This is an important debate.
Honorable Member, I would not know seated here where are the members of the executive that are not here. Some of them are here. However, we can follow up on that question, but for now we cannot give you a conclusive. What is the point of order?
Honourable Chairperson, thank you. But, Honourable Chairperson, I think we have a right to stand up on questions of prevalence. And for members in Castle Corner to threaten me to say we will take you out,
order.
That is wrong.
Honourable Katia, thank you very much. Honourable members. Order. Honourable members. Honourable members. Honourable members at the corner there, I think we need to lessen our voices. I think we should. Because when we speak, we also want to be heard what we say. And I think we need to accord the same respect to other members in the House. Honourable Ndlozi, can you please not interject? Honourable Dex, can you continue with your speech?
Honourable Chairperson, in the last 20 years under the ANC-led government, there are 1.7 more young people working in this country. We have promoted entrepreneurship development and provided financial skills and mentorships. We have set aside 2.5 billion rands for youth entrepreneurship loans and support through IDC, CIFA, and NYDA partnerships. Our policy environment to address youth development has improved drastically since 1994. Today we have a decisive policy to address youth development in this country. The main intention of the National Youth Policy 2020 is to create an environment that will allow young people of South Africa to reach their full potential and develop their lives for the better. The National Youth Policy 2020 shares the vision of the National Development Plan that South Africa has the potential and capacity to eliminate the triple challenges of poverty, unemployment, inequalities facing our nation. The NYDA has identified 4 priorities that are meant to drive decisive youth development in this country. The first one is economic participation of the youth of this country. The second is education and skills development. The third is national youth service. And the fourth is social cohesion. The emphasis in the new growth part is on the need for the state to create jobs through direct employment schemes, targeted subsidies, and an expansionary macroeconomic package. The youth employment tax incentive, which was implemented at the beginning of 2014, has begun to improve job prospects for young workers. As of August 2014, about 23,500 employers in this country had claimed the incentive for at least 209,000 young employees. The employment tax incentive, which was introduced last year, directed mainly at the youth, is progressing very well. About 2 billion rand has been claimed to date. 2 billion rand has been claimed to date by some 29,000 employers who have claimed for at least 270,000 young people who are working. We announced a target of 6 million work opportunities over 5 years. We have thus far created more than 850,000 work opportunities. This means that we are poised to meet the annual target of 1 million job opportunities. In order to promote youth development, the ANC government, through the National Treasury, established a jobs fund that's aimed at creating jobs by supporting initiatives that generate employment in innovative ways. The fund offers once-off grants in the areas of enterprise development, infrastructure, support for work seekers, and institutional capacity building. Since its inception, the Jobs Fund has approved 93 projects and allocated 5 billion rand in grant funding. This has leveraged a further 6.1 billion rand from project partners. Total employment in these projects amounts to 167,847 jobs, of which 56,356 are new placements in vacant positions. This number is set to rise over 185,000 beneficiaries who will receive work-related training. The projects have already created 30,700 new permanent jobs, and 8,730 short-term jobs have also been created. In addition, 17,428 young people have been placed in jobs, with 4,792 completing internships and 75,163 completing training. Now, fellow young South Africans, these are the facts that I've presented to you today. These are the facts that I've presented to you, that the ANC government is serious about youth development and are serious about developing youth. The people on my left-hand side here, these are the very same people that in the committee, when the portfolio committee tries to approve more funding for the National Youth Development Agency to empower young people in this country, they fight the ANC that no more money must be given for youth. Then they sit here today, they sit here and they want to shout the loudest about youth development. We in the ANC, we tell no lies. We claim no easy victories. We know the challenges facing the young people in South Africa. And we call upon the young people of South Africa to hold hands with the ANC government to move young people in this country forward. We understand that the TA cannot discuss youth development, because the TA needs to deal with issues of the past. Their future are not with them. They need to deal with issues of the past. You can expel and terminate Scholar Barnett's membership. You can terminate a membership, but the problem you are facing, the dilemma you are facing, is that you have thousands and thousands more Scholar Barnetts in your party. And when you terminate all their membership, you'll be a party without membership and without voters. And that is what the TA is all about.
Honorable member, can you please stick on your speech?
Yes. Right. Fellow South Africans, the only thing that the opposition can do when we speak and we present facts in this parliament about the advances that the government have made on youth development, then they make a noise.
Honorable Chair.
You must learn to keep quiet and listen, and we let you learn to keep quiet.
Honorable
Learn to keep quiet.
Can you please take your seat? What point of order, sir, are you rising on?
The speaker there must please reduce his voice. He must not fight.
There is not a point of order. Order, honourable member. Can you proceed?
My minutes were the.
Can you please
Right, thank
proceed?
Yeah. The TA must learn to keep quiet when the ANC educates you. When we educate you, learn to keep quiet. And you will learn something. You will learn something in the process. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Honourable Jafta. Order, honourable members.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. Honourable Chair, when we talk about developing the youth of this country, we should be referring mostly to molding, capacitating,
order, honourable member,
and creating more opportunities for the young citizens of this country. We should be talking about developing the youth that will have a vision for South Africa as a nation. The youth that is willing to be developed and be prepared to take any risk to develop themselves and their country. We cannot develop our youth without looking back where this country comes from, where it is and where do we want it to be. That, Honourable Chair, leaves us with no choice but to analyze the past and the present socio-economic and political conditions of our country, which then tells us about the most disadvantaged youth for prioritization in any programs that government puts in place for the purpose of youth development. The lack of skills is a general cry in all departments in this country. That is really a problem with the education which is still given to our children, as many graduates remain frustrated at home with no work opportunities. The government, therefore, needs to improve education and invest more on education that will produce better citizens of this country. Our system of education
Honourable Jafta, can you take your seat? Honourable Singh.
Madam Chairperson, I rise on a point of order, and I'm sorry that the Honourable Member is disturbed. There's just too much of noise from that corner there that we can't hear the Honourable Member.
Order. Honourable members, can we please lessen our voices so that we can hear the member on the podium? You can proceed, sir.
Our system of education must produce job creators than producing job seekers. We know that the youth has resorted to the use of drugs, which most of the time lead them to committing serious crimes. Many social and economic factors contribute to that, Honourable Chair. It is the responsibility of the government to firstly restore the self-confidence of such youth. That can be done by coming up with programs for the youth which will restore their human dignity and regain self-confidence. We want the youth that will have value and contribute constructively toward the political, social, and economic growth of this country. Honourable Chair, there is a saying that says, I quote, "Personality opens the door, but character keeps the doors opened," close quote. In conclusion, Honourable Chair, when developing the youth of this country, we must not exclude the youth in this Parliament. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Honourable Manana.
Angibonge mqinisihlalo longaphambili, ngibonge emalunga eParliament, ngibonge bavakashi bethu kugallery. Diverse people unite is the counsel and imperative that the San people tells today's generation through the coat arms. It is as our destiny hints and our unity. Indeed, unity is diversity, is our lodestar. Oh yes, it is our rather as our destination. The National Democratic Society beckons. This is further aptly articulated by the preamble of our Constitution. And I quote, "We, the people of South Africa, recognize the injustice of our past, honor those who suffered for the justice and freedom in our land, respect those who work to build and develop our country, and believe that South Africa belongs to all who live in it, united in our diversity," close quote. The South African nation is a proud product of many streams of history and culture, representing the origins, dispersal, and reintegration of humanity over hundreds of thousands of years. What emerged in our country, what colonialism of a special type, with both the colonizer and the colonized located in a common territory, and with a large European settler population. The deal between the descendants of Dutch settlers and the British imperial power at the end of so-called Anglo-Boer War, formalized in 1910. South Africa's statehood premised on the political oppression and social subordination and exclusion of the majority of the people, while the anti-colonial struggle could easily have been conducted as one against the racial group. It rose above these categories to embrace the principle of racialism, to see humanity as one and diversity as a source of strength, while all communities, including the oppressors and the oppressed, evinced patriarchal relation of power. The struggle evolved to appreciate the real potential role of women, and that their liberation of patriarchy was and should be an integral part of the new democracy. Honorable Chair, at this stage, up to take a leaf from the wise words of counsel from the strategy and tactics of the ANC, and I quote, "A nation's success depends also on its ability to encourage, harness, and incorporate into its endeavors that creativity, daring, and energy of youth," close quote. South Africa's success depends also on incorporating the efforts and contribution of its youth. Yes, it is true that with so many of the young people in the township elsewhere being unemployed, the reality is that the system has marginalized them from the center of economic activity. I must hasten to say, however, honorable members, that the cries of the youth of our country and will never fall on deaf ears. To the young people of my beloved country, I want to say to you, your organization, the ANC, has not only liberated us from apartheid, it is determined to liberate all of us from poverty, unemployment, and inequality. I agree with you that the time has come and the time is now to enjoy the fruits of our freedom. I am in full agreement that we are the future of our nation. I fully agree that there can be nothing for us without us. Again, I say that the ANC has listened to your voices and will listen to your cries for a better life for all, regardless of race, ethnicity, culture, and creed. Our engagement with our government should be underpinned and, yes, even driven by patriotism. We need to protect what we have already achieved and infrastructure we have already put in place. Indeed, we should be vigilant to defend the gains of our struggle. We should be responsible in our conduct because our nation needs us and needs us healthy and strong. We should form a wall against any force that seeks to divert us for our cause. We should be worried of demagogues who opportunistically promise pie in the sky in order to advance their narrow political agendas. Our organization, the ANC, will walk even difficult mile together with us. Yes, there are some other challenges along the way, but they are insurmountable. The Freedom Charter's aspiration remain our blueprint. We strive for the doors of learning and culture to be open to all and for people to share in the country's wealth. In other ways, free education is our ultimate goal, while radical economic transformation is what drives us. The youth is prioritized for employment through youth employment incentives. There are youth asset asides in procurement. There are other endeavors to ensure youth development and youth participation in the mainstream economy. Honorable Chairperson, the President has recently told the youth of our country the following, I quote, "I have established the Presidential Youth Working Group to mainstream youth development and empowerment in the work of government. This group is also designed to enable young people."
Order, Honourable Member, can you take your seat? What is the point of order, Honourable Shandu?
The point of order, Chair, is as follows. I just want to know if we're still on the youth empowerment debate.
Order, Honourable Shandu, we are.
I'm a little bit lost here.
You can take your seat.
Can you bring me back, Chair?
I'm bringing you back to take your seat. The member is on the subject. She may be taking it from a different vantage point, but she is on the... Honourable Member, you can proceed.
Shape government policy by sensitizing us to the impacts of policies on the youth and the future of the country. In this way, we are saying that youth development is now everybody's business. It is not to be pushed aside. Every government department must ensure that its policies talk to youth development. Honourable Chairperson, this is a parliament. It's not 161 channel for the Lokshin Bioscope. Let me conclude with the words. Yes, there are challenges en route to the National Democratic Society of our future dispensation. But together with the young people of our land, we shall overcome the legacy of poverty, the legacy of unemployment, yes, even the legacy of social inequality. We shall
Order, honourable members, can we please lessen our voice? I will end up naming people who are making the noise.
We shall
Proceed, honourable member.
We shall live in a country where all equal and the fruits of production are equitable shared amongst the citizens. Yes, as South Africa united its diversity. Chairperson, prior 1994, one cannot even think of what to attribute to empowerment for black people, for black youth. What we know is empowerment was for whites only. Job and privileges were reserved for whites youth while they were attending school. This because apartheid viewed black life was cheap and not worthy to be empowered. They tried and conceal their history by changing their name and even trying to steal the history and heritage of the liberation movement, including trying to separate former President Nelson Mandela from the ANC. Chairperson, angisho ukuthi ngale kwesandla sami semncele sinema programs okuthumela iyouth yethu eCuba. The 8 provinces, they are sending our students, our young ones to Cuba to study. Thank you, Chairperson.
Honourable Van Damme.
Honourable Chairperson, it is indeed absolutely unacceptable that 21 years into our democracy, young people in South Africa continue to struggle. The ANC is simply not doing enough to provide young people in the country with the tools required to support themselves. Not only do our young people have to contend with not being able to support themselves, they have to contend with so-called black tax, and the fact that when they work, they do not work for themselves, they work to support their families and entire communities. For those of us that were lucky enough to go to university, graduate and find employment, we are happy to use our salaries to support our gogos and kulus, uncles and aunts, and it is painful to see that our peers cannot. For those young people that have been left behind with their families and communities, the blame must be laid firmly at the door of the ANC, but simply it does not care enough. We are here discussing the important struggles of young people in our country, and half of the ANC is not here, and half of the ministers are not here. You do not care about young people. Instead of fielding young people to speak in this debate, the ANC gave us Abamama, Nabatata, Nabama 34.9 to speak on issues of young people. You do not trust young people enough to lead, and because you do not trust them to lead, you are completely out of touch with their needs. Because the ANC is out of touch with young people, Honorable Mkongi could say in this House last week that the Fees Must Fall movement wasn't legitimate and was funded by foreign forces. This is clearly the ANC's position because the leader of the ANC Women's League said on Twitter, Yebo, Imalema Basi Vele England. It is therefore no wonder that the ANC has not allocated additional funding to universities because you do not find the concerns of students legitimate. I mean, Honorable Makondo stood up here to read a speech that was clearly written
order,
for
honorable
him.
Members, order. Continue, honorable member.
Honorable Makondo stood up here to read a speech that was clearly written for him by the ANC Research Office. He didn't care enough to write his own speech and read it with energy and vigor. Chief, you must be seized, passionate and angry when it comes to young people. Don't stand here and speak like a drone. Honorable Manana said the ANC listens to young people. Then how is it that when students were here during the tabling of the MTBPS, you allowed Honorable Zimande to sit here and instead allowed SABS to tear gas and stun grenade young people outside? You are not interested in listening to young people. And then Honorable Derks, who stood here and sweated, I thought he was going to faint, talking about how horrible the DA is, when just last year he was with the provincial leadership of the DA in KZN, cap in hand, asking to join the DA. I would be very careful of this man, ANC. That man ain't loyal. Chairperson, it cannot be that 21 years into our democracy, 70% of black
Order,
youth
honorable
between
members. Honorable members, it's not very clever to interrupt your own speaker. Continue, honorable member.
Chairperson, it cannot be that 21 years into our democracy, 70% of black youth between the ages of 15 and 24 are neither working or in training. Even for those black people that move to the middle class, 85% of them will remain poor.
Chairperson.
Order. Honorable Van Dam. Honorable Van Dam, will you just take your seat? No, you can sit right there, honorable member. Honorable member, why are you rising?
Honorable Chairperson.
Honorable members, I can't hear the honorable member.
Honorable Chairperson, I just would like to know that a foreigner would like to take
honorable
a question.
member.
Point
of order.
Hanif Wasser still have a membership form for you if you'd like to join. You hypocrites.
Point of order. Honorable Van Dam, will you take your seat, please?
House Chairperson.
I'll come to you, Honorable Chief Whip. Honorable Derks, will you withdraw that comment, please? We've previously in this parliament dealt with the matter, and I want you to withdraw that comment.
He doesn't need to join, bloody idiots.
Order, honorable members. Order, honorable members. Honorable Derks?
Withdraw.
Thank you. Continue, honorable member.
Sorry, House Chair.
Turncoats.
House Chair, with respect.
Honorable Van Dam.
Is he withdrawing the statement unconditionally or his membership application to the Democratic Alliance?
Continue, honorable.
Gap between the races in order to build a truly equal, non-racial South Africa. The ANC is failing the youth of South Africa, and it is no wonder that 2015 has been marked as the year of the student. Those students and young people will no doubt turn away from the ANC in the droves to seek new political homes. The Blue House will gladly accept them. I thank you.
Order, honorable members. The next speaker, order. The next speaker is the Honorable Deputy Minister in the Presidency.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Clearly from the engagements and contributions that have been made in this House, it is clear that the ANC remains the only political party that has committed itself to the ideal of youth development and have put in place institutions and policies that are intended to take the development of young people forward. And thus the President has placed in his office youth development. and also put in place the presidential working group and has ensured that within a space of a year, we adopt what we refer to as the National Youth Policy 2020. And over the course of the next few months, we will be integrating the objectives of the National Youth Policy 2020 into the medium-term strategy framework so that the whole of government is seized with the implementation of the National Youth Development Policy. None of all the speakers who came to speak here from this side of the House have expressed any policy commitment, any policy intention, any strategy whatsoever to advance the development of young people except the ANC, and thus the ANC remains the only political party that will take forward these needs, interests and aspirations of young people. In the last few weeks, we've also seen young people who went to protest in universities, who also went to protest in the union buildings here in Parliament, and also at Lutule House. The response of the leadership of the ANC and also of government was very apt, was very swift, and was in meeting the demands of students. Of course, we know that there are those who wanted to hijack the students' protest, to turn those student protests into some Occupy Parliament or Occupy the Union buildings with the hope that students' action will lead to an illegitimate and illegal overthrow of government. And to their disappointment, when the ANC-led government engaged with the student leadership and also with the university management and reached an agreement, and students went back to go and write exams, many of them were shouting on the pavements, hoping that students will continue with their action. And again, we have seen through the efforts of students that through peaceful protest, through peaceful action, we will all realize quality, public, free education, which remains the policy of the ANC. What I think is very surprising is some of the interventions and proposals that Honorable Mainir came here to dance about. Firstly, that he says that the ANC's proposals are intended to take money from the private sector, which is clearly an overall policy position of the DA, to protect private privilege, to protect white privilege, and to ensure that white privilege is perpetuated in this country. He speaks about austerity measures, he speaks about all sorts of things except things which will interfere with profit maximization and accumulation. If we are to say that there must be a rise in corporate taxes so that we must fund quality public free education, the Honorable Mainir and his fellow choristers will shout no. If we are to say that there must be an increase in the wages of workers who are on a daily basis being exploited and therefore cannot afford to pay the skyrocketing fees in universities, the Honorable Mainir and his fellow choristers will shout no, because their agenda is to continue to perpetuate white privilege and private sector profit maximization. There is no difference between what Honorable Groenewald came here to say and what Honorable Mainir represents. I want to tell you today, Honorable Groenewald, that as long as the scars that were implanted by apartheid on the back of our parents are still visible on us, the current generation, we will never ever stop blaming apartheid for the conditions which the young South Africans, all young South Africans, are faced with. We will never. It does not matter the quality of basic or higher education today, but it will never be the same as the ugly Bantu education that you shoved down the throats of our parents. We will never neglect the realities that South Africa's economy is divided, still divided, in terms of black and white. We will never be oblivious to the fact that when we speak about poverty, unemployment, and inequality, we predominantly speak about the structural policies that apartheid has supervised over many years. We will never be oblivious to that reality, and it is that reality that the ANC-led government will continue to fight and will continue to expose.
Achtbare voorzitter.
Order, honorable members. Why are you rising, honorable member?
Is die achtbare adjunct minister bereid om 'n vraag te beantwoord?
Deputy Minister, are you prepared to take a question?
No.
Unfortunately not. Thank you, honorable member. Continue, honorable Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much. The ANC recommits itself to the ideal of non-racism, of non-sexism, and of a democratic and prosperous society. National reconciliation, the building of one nation, remains on top of our agenda as the ANC. We do not believe that national reconciliation has failed. Yes, it has been slow, but we are not going to be abdicating the ideals that Nelson Mandela and his generation has actually ensured that they are attained by evading a bloodbath in our country and ensuring that we are involved in a peaceful transition. We will never, 21 years down the line, because we want to be peacetime heroes, because we do not want to appreciate the conditions which our country at that time was faced with, would want to say that Nelson Mandela and them have sold out the youth of this country. Yes, we take responsibility. We take responsibility for the fact that we had a peaceful transition, but we also take responsibility of the fact that that peaceful transition came at a particular cost, and that we are not going to be adventurous. We are not going to be peacetime heroes. We are not going to hide behind our political opportunism, behind our own newly found vanguardism, in order to appease our own electoral intentions. We believe that a responsible transition of national reconciliation and building a better South Africa for all of us is possible. There are those who next year, 2016 local government elections, will be walking into RDP houses which were built by this government and will tell people that the ANC has not delivered. That hypocrisy. There are those who will be going to newly built public schools, will be telling children who go into those schools that this government has not delivered. There are those who have been to universities who try to hijack the strike of students, some of them the leader of the opposition, the chief whip of the EFF, and many others who tried to go and address student rallies and were jeered and were rejected, and because they want to project an ideal that the ANC has failed. The ANC has changed life.
Deputy Minister, behave, but
no. Honorable Ndlozi, why are you rising?
I want to raise on a point of order.
What is the point of order?
The Deputy Minister is reflecting on the reputation of the Chief Whip of the EFF by misleading the public. He says the Deputy Chief Whip, the Chief Whip of the EFF, went to universities to try and hijack a struggle. The Deputy Chief Whip, the Chief Whip of the EFF, has never been to a single university.
Thank you, honorable member.
No, I'm getting to my point, Chair.
Yes,
he must withdraw.
You've made your point, honorable member.
He must withdraw. It is out of order. We've never been to any university. Honorable Floyd Shivambu has never been to any university to try and hijack a struggle.
Will you take your seat, please? Honorable Deputy Minister, will you conclude, please?
Thank you very much. There are those in their hypocrisy.
Honorable Chairperson, can you rule on my order?
It's not a point of order, it's a point for debate, honorable member.
Continue, no, he's
Deputy
misleading
Minister.
the public.
No, honorable member.
No, in the rules it's right to lie.
I rule that it is not a point of order, it's a point for debate. You can debate it with the Deputy Minister.
Can I put it on the record then, Honorable Chairperson, through you? Honorable Deputy Minister is lying.
The honorable member, take your seat, please. Take your seat. Conclude, honorable Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much. As I said, that there are those who in their hypocrisy next year during the local government election in this house who are
Honourable
graduates
Deputy Minister,
and who
your
had
time is now
access to
expired.
university education and can speak with the most eloquent of accent, courtesy of TEFSA and the NSFAS.
Honourable Deputy Minister,
switch off his mic.
Switch off his mic.
Order. Yet they are the example of the success of the
Deputy
ANC.
Minister, your time is expired. Thank you. Order, honourable members. Order. Honourable members, that concludes the debate and the business for the day. The House is adjourned.